Hey guys, Mustached Chum here, and this video is I had made my 2-hour review of Stranger Things, all of it, including Season 5, before EFAP had made their coverage of Stranger Things, all 5 seasons, also respectively. I did so before full well knowing that they at least semi-disliked most of Stranger Things. However, what I did not expect was for such bad faith, grifting SLOP that had proceeded to enter my vicinity when I was sitting through this and shifting through it. So their tactics, to clarify, for referring to from Stranger Things Season 2 moving forward, because they seem to have zero issues with, or at least a lot less issues with Season 1. So Season 2 moving forward, they seem to have they say that's when the show died. That's their claim, by the way. Which I think is absolutely ridiculous. It needed to be substantively claimed by them. They were the assertive ones making that claim, so they had to prove to me that Season 2 was bad. And their only 2 arguments for all of Season 2 relied on 2 simple factors. And this strategy seems to surprisingly work for the EFAP audience. I guess we will see how many little people will pick up on their strategy here. That is, if a character makes a single mistake, that means the entire season was bad. That's one thing they do in Season 2. And then subsequently speaking, they make a vague reference to something else, but they don't provide any evidence for it, and I'll give this 2 specific examples, respectively. So first, the character that makes a mistake. This is referring to Dustin in Season 2. They make the claim, so I'm starting from their claim first, is that when Dustin allowed the pollywog, the creature that he finds, into his home, that it ate the cat, and that was bad. That was bad writing that happened. And that made Dustin, I think they make the direct claim that a character assassinated him. I don't know if they use that word directly. I would have to rewatch the EFAP episode, so I'm not going to make that hard claim yet. I think they might have, but again, I'm not making the hard claim that that's the case. But again, they stop at saying that that's the issue. That a character made a mistake, leading this pollywog to his home, which allowed the pollywog to eat his cat. So that, in and of itself, made Season 2 bad, among the other issue that we'll reach once we figure this whole first one out. My problem with this claim should be fairly simple. Just because a character makes a mistake, that does not mean that the entire season was bad. I think that should be a given. If anything, character flaws usually pertains to better writing, not worse writing. I thought, after all, that EFAP was not a fan of the Mary Sue or Gary Stu sort of archetype, the characters who, typically get everything their way, don't struggle, don't make mistakes, everyone, sort of falls in line with, whatever that type of character archetype needs. But now they're complaining once a character even makes a single mistake, in the case of Dustin, that ruins the entire season. You see, the issue is that they want it both ways. This, to me, feels like SLOP grifting. It's SLOP grifting, or the grifting SLOP, as I have officially coined this term. So yes, this is awful criticism. Like, what do you mean? One single mistake makes all the writing bad. On the contrary, we should dive into why it's even bad rather than just making the assertion. By the way, once they say that Dustin brought the polywog home and ate the cat, that was the end of that sequence. That's a lie. Or they outright forgot to mention it because of the grift. They wanted to outrage the audience by not feeding them all of the information that happens after the mistake has occurred. To sell you the idea, because a character made a single mistake, that it makes all of Season 2 bad. I want to make that crystal clear that that is what they did. That's fucking ridiculous, by the way. That standard needs to go the fuck away. This is pathetic. So let's dive in, now that we have all the pieces in place of where they fucked up in their claim. So once this incident occurs, now we need to ask, now that Dustin has made this mistake, there's stuff that happens beforehand that they also don't mention, and there's stuff that happens after they also don't mention, interestingly enough. So first, once he finds the polywog, he begins to feed it chocolate. This is established in the same episode, I think, polywog. I could be misremembering it, but I'm pretty sure it's all in that episode. It could be. Then, you know, he brings the polywog home. I'm going in order of events. I'm actually going through it instead of just saying, he made a mistake, therefore bad. This is the job I would have suspected EFAP would do, but they didn't do their due diligence. They actually didn't go into the full details of what happened in the sequence. They just said, mistake equal bad. So that was dog shit, to clarify. Pun intended, since Rags is always typically there. At any rate, so he feeds the polywog chocolate, as I was saying. He brings it home. That's the next sequence in the event. Then, the polywog at some other juncture eats the cat. Then, after that mistake has allowed for this to happen, now that the cause of the cat has occurred, the effect is that Dustin, from that point moving forward, moves the polywog by feeding it food bait, lures it to the cellar, and proceeds to try to get Steve so that they can get rid of it, presumably, so. Or do something with the polywog. So he goes to get Steve. This is all stuff EFAP does not mention, because they decided to fucking suck at their job and not describe all the events in Season 2 that allotted this to occur after and before. So, with that being said, it is then, when Steve gets there, because he eventually finds Steve, they get to the cellar, and then they discover that the polywog has shedded its skin once more, because that's what it's been progressively doing throughout the entire episode, and then proceeds to have escaped through a tunnel that it has dug up. So, you would think that that is the end of the consequence, that, you know, that is the full extent of his mistake, that now that he's gotten Steve, that's the end. No! Therefore, yes, there's another therefore, because of good writing, not bad writing. Therefore, when they encroach upon the polywog again in the tunnels when they're down there, and they think that they're going to get attacked, it is Dustin who redeems himself in this moment by calming the polywog that is encroaching upon them, because it's that creature, it's that very same creature. He notices the design, the distinct design, and proceeds to feed it chocolate again, the thing that it fed on earlier. So it proceeds to do that, which allows the party to escape. He atoned for his mistake, the thing that EFAP refused to mention, because apparently a character can't even make the mistake and then get redeemed for that mistake. You see, they don't want to admit that I forget the brothers' names, the writers, typically, of these shows. But there are a few other writers, the Duffer Brothers, excuse me, that they just want to claim that the Duffer Brothers are bad writers. But they use the most shit criticisms I think I've ever seen to explore this. Because when you actually dive into the episodes and explore it, the show shows that they have cause and effect, setup and payoff, all of these things that seem to fall in line with good writing, not bad writing. So again, now the party is allowed to escape, due to Dustin doing what he did before, which is feeding the chocolate. So that allotted that creature to have an affinity for chocolate when they met again, which allowed the party to escape, which atoned for his mistake in the first place. So that's what we call an arc, I would assume. I would hope. Like, he atoned for his mistake. That's sort of an arc. It's a very loose arc, I will grant you that, but it's an arc nonetheless. So there you go. This is all the detail that, of course, EFAP would leave out to make sure that they make the claim that, you know, once again, that that Justin is just bad or assassinated, whatever their claim was on that behalf. Or that it was just bad writing. I'm pretty sure that that was their official claim. So now we have to move on from that, because the only other thing they refer to say that Season 2 is bad is that, and this is their second claim, and I'm a little bit thrown off by it, I will openly admit. Their second claim is that Hopper was abusive toward 11. Now, to clarify, I have no fucking clue what they're talking about. Because, again, just like the Dustin thing, they don't provide any fucking evidence for what the fuck they're talking about. Because of course they didn't. What the fuck do you mean, abuse? Can you please at least point to me, like, a line, or, like, a moment, like, I would have to rescour Season 2 again, I guess, because I have no fucking clue what they're referring to when they say, and granted, it could be the case that he did that, but I have no fucking clue what that is in reference to, so I'm not sure what I'd be looking for, exactly. Was it, like, a scene where he yells at her? Does that fall in line what they mean by abuse? Like, I don't know. Again, they don't clarify what they mean when they say abuse. Because we have to recall, additionally, that this is in the 1980s. Now, I'm a little bit weak on law, so you'll have to excuse me. So I'm not exactly sure, like, what would constitute law abuse back then. Like, was it looser back then, or was it as tight as it is now, is what I'm trying to allude to. Like, it was belting your children as an example. I don't think he does that in Season 2, I'm pretty sure. Like, would that fall under abuse in the 1980s? I'm not sure. Again, I'm not good with law, so feel free to enlighten me on that one. I actually legitimately don't know, but I also, again, don't know what they're alluding to when they even say abuse. And they keep mentioning that throughout the season that he is abusive toward Elle moving forward again, but again, they just say it without specifying what they're referring to even later on in later seasons, so again, I don't know. I don't know what they even mean. So this is an appeal to, like, vagary. I don't know what they mean. So I can't address their second claim even properly because I don't have any reference for it. I don't know what they mean. So those were, by the way, those are their only two issues to say that Season 2 is when the show was killed. Killed. Bad. Terrible. The worst thing ever. Or, like, really bad. Maybe not the worst thing ever, but, like, really bad. And I'm sitting here watching this effect going, what the fuck? What do you mean those were the two things? Like, surely, like, everything must be falling apart for you to make a claim that it is a bad season, right? But those are the only two things, and one of those actually proves that they were good writing. Excellent writing, dare I make the claim. And the second was so vague that I legitimately don't know if their critique is valid or not. Like, I have no way of knowing now, because of how vague, when they see abuse and they don't make any reference to what the abuse is, then I can't point to anything and go, they either made a point or they did not make a point. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, this is so terrible. This whole video, this however long their EFAP was on this, was so bad. I'm surprised that people are being like, yeah, you know what, Stranger Things, like, no, do better. Make actual arguments and prove, like, with validity what your claims are making. With actual evidence, please. And thank you. Anyway, in Season 3, I think their biggest complaint was that they go to the mall and they fight a creature that is it is a very loose reference to alien snatchers, body snatchers, excuse me, which is sort of true. That's what they were kind of inspired by, clearly. But the point is that what we are seeing is that we see who is body snatched, that being Billy, and then who Billy affects, one other lifeguard lady, I forget her name. And then we see, like, the droves of people after that, that in a horrific scene that, of course, they wouldn't mention because fuck off, I guess, when the people are, like, that have already been possessed are marching down, and then they, like, gloop into their death to reabsorb into this creature. Like, one of the most horrific things I think I've ever seen. But no, it's a joke. It looks, the creature itself, it looks pathetic. It's CGI glop, removing the actual horror, by not talking about it, by refusing to acknowledge that it even occurred. Because, of course, they did that. Not so surprisingly. And they keep alluding to this idea that from Season 2, I guess, moving forward, I think this is when they start saying, it starts to feel like more of the greatest hits of the 80s versus living in the 80s. I don't know what they mean by this, because they never explain, like, what that means, honestly. So yeah, I don't know what that means. And I guess if I were to be charitable, if I were to steelman that position, it's like, well, if you're writing a show and it takes place in an era, I think most writers would preferably, unless you're creating a more, like, dystopian version of a thing, you would probably lean more on the more positive postures of any given era of the thing, typically speaking. But again, I don't know what, and again, I'm trying to steelman the position, but I'm not entirely sure, again, what they mean by living in the 80s in its entirety. Like they're going to war with Russia. I would suspect that that's a bad thing, but that's also in the season, so I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like, we were in some pretty dire shits, obviously, also in the 80s, and that's addressed via the war, so I don't know what the fuck they mean by it's just the good parts of the 80s, or it's just the illusion of the 80s, or the pleasant part of the 80s. I actually don't know what they mean, because there are other parts that seem to, from the very show itself, that is disagreeing with their assertion that that it's just all the 80s hits. And then they complain about the music later on in Season 4 and 5, respectively. referring to Running Up Your Hill, which they play a few number of times, which they create this is just how writing works. They create an in-universe explanation to why that is the case. For other songs, they just sort of typically play. So Running Up Your Hill actually has the best writing associated in it, but no, it's the overused, overthinked song, even though it has the writing associated with it. It's like, how the fuck do you fuck up that bad in your criticism? You can't even, like, compliment that aspect of it. Like, of course they couldn't. I don't think they do. It's like, it has a story purpose. It's like, oh, okay, that's neat that they integrated the song into the plot in a substantial way that saves a character's life, granted. But I digress. But yeah, just ending off on season 3, I guess they just generally hate the entire Russian segment. They kind of gloss over it in a way. So I don't know what their issues with the Russian plot actually are, because even since season 1, and they openly admit this, they say that the group split up and they, because the brothers here, they create these converging plots, right? These subplots that go A, B, and C, they go to different locales, and then in every season from season 1 to 5, this is consistently true, all the plots always converge in one way or another. From the Russian plot, they are using the gate that is opened up over there via the Russians. Or no, it's not a gate that is opened there, sorry, it is a Demogorgon that they brought over there. So it is outside of the space in which the Demogorgon could escape back into its realm, I think, is the way that it would operate, if I understand the rules of the gate opening segment properly. In as best faith to the show as possible. It seems to be grounded in the town that it's in, and then they bring over a creature from that point to Russia, which is why it's stuck in the cage. But they say, oh, but EFAP makes a claim like, oh, couldn't the creature make a portal there? I don't remember if in season 3, do any of the creatures make portals in season 3? Or are they just all killed? I think they're just all killed from the flamethrower, right? Am I misremembering this? When Murray is up there and he flamethrowers the lot of them. Did they escape? Did any of them escape via a portal? I don't recall there being a portal. I could be wrong on that one. Maybe I'm misremembering. So maybe they might have a point. I don't know. Please provide reference, because they didn't do it, and of course they wouldn't do it because we're fucking lazy on that one too. So I just have to allude to, I don't remember if any of the Demogorgons escaped via portal in season 3 in Russia particularly. So please provide if there's any evidence of the contrary. Or I'll just have to rewatch that part of season 3 again, I guess, to see if they do. At any rate, season 4. So they say that season 4 is the only semi-redeemable season, I guess, is my best interpretation of what they were saying. Of course, they mentioned, as I had just mentioned, the whole Running Up Your Hill. They said they got sick of the song or whatever. I personally downloaded the song. I found it really nice. There's like one other song I downloaded from the album. So yeah, I don't know. I don't mind its like usage or any of the song picks that the show has gone through. Within universe, they're typically in a place that would have music, like if they're in a car and traveling, they would be playing on the radio, or if they're in the roller skate, they do the whole "you spin me right around" or "we're living in America." I think one of those two. I don't remember which, but point being is that I think they typically have music mostly within scenes like that. I think there might be a few exceptions, but I would have to like look back and see like actual examples, and if the song pick was bad, or if it's out of sync of what's happening. There's a whole lot of different stuff to actually go over, but of course EFAP just makes a general claim and then moves on, because of course that is their base apparatus throughout this whole thing. And then they have made the claim that they just hate Nancy, right? Because Nancy, they make this bizarre claim that Nancy utilizes other people until they're like sapped of all of their whatever, and then she moves on. And I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Because that sounds even vaguer than the Hopper abuse thing to me. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? And of course they provide zero examples, because of course they don't. They just want to say that Nancy's like, they want to lean on the trope that she was hated, I guess, via... So anyways, let's talk about Nancy before we even move on to season 4/5 properly. So I guess they always hated Nancy since her introduction. Quite frankly, I don't get it. So just to clarify, she has this whole love triangle thing going on, just to specify what this is. With Steve and Jonathan, right? That's her dynamic pretty early on, and it starts with Steve, just to set the standard here, and then Jonathan comes into the picture. He does this creepy, takes the photo bit, obviously. Their criticism of him is correct, by the way. Again, I'm acting in good faith of EFAP here, by the way, when they make the claim that that is wrong. It is, of him taking the picture. And then Steve breaks the camera as a result. Which, you would probably just call the police. That might have been a more preferable way of dealing with the scenario, but, again, of course, EFAP doesn't even want to... They just say Steve is in the right. They don't even want to entertain that there could have been an alternative solution to this outcome of, Jonathan taking the pictures. So, yeah. There could have been an alternate, writing choice here, but they choose not even to, again, engage with that idea. They just say Steve's in the right, which I guess, sure, but again, I would allude to the idea that there were other solutions that were better for the group, including Steve, to take proper legal action in this context, and not to break the camera himself. So that would have been the more adult thing to do, I would probably argue, among the two, if you were, like, strictly given those two choices. Was there an alternative third solution? Probably, maybe. Like, again, you might have to rework the context of what Jonathan was doing in the first place, so you would have to fix that first, probably. Then you would have to fix, like, is there any alternative outcome, if there needs to be one. So that's what I'll say on that matter. Anyway, so Nancy is, she's the one who's pushed back by this. She doesn't say anything to either of them, because I don't imagine, like, she was just discomforted by the confrontation to begin with. obviously. I don't know, like, and she, by the way, I think she's the one who confronts Jonathan, and she's the one who mentions to him that that was a little bit creepy on his part. I think that was her doing that, so that's interesting that EFAP doesn't bring that up. Interesting. That's really interesting that they would not bring up something that Nancy actually does to make their point. So it's interesting that when Nancy agrees with them, EFAP, they still find a way to hate her as an entire character. Huh. Interesting. Got it. Just making sure we're clear on everything here. Then, I'm trying to remember the order of the events. So after that, and I believe that's season 2, I want to say that's in. Because that's when Steve and Jonathan start to have their rivalry, quote unquote. And then it is in season 3. Oh, by the way, I should mention, as I did in my review, because, you know, I wanted to make sure that Nancy was covered properly, I said that Nancy was the one in season 1 when they were prepping for, I think it's season 1, yeah? Was Jonathan in season 1 with her? I think it's this scene. I think this is season 1. I could be right on this. It's her and Jonathan there, and then they're practicing when they're trying to hunt for the Demogorgon, and they're practicing on the field with the cans. Jonathan was firing beforehand, but it's alluded to that he has not been firing guns for a long time, ever since he was a kid, so he's gotten rusty. That's the whole bit. He's missing the shots. Nancy comes along. She says, "Oh, give me a try." She aims the gun, and she shoots the can in her first shot. This is their, you know, one of their earliest interactions. Something, of course, EFAP would not bring up, because they don't want to say that that's set up to her payoffs as the whole Rambo Nancy that they want to mock, because they just want to say that that's just bad, because of course they do, because they didn't want to do their due diligence in saying that there was setup to this, and then there was a payoff to this through Nancy, because they just wanted to make the claim that Nancy was just overall a bad character, rather than actually looking at scenes that, you know, either make a strong or weak claim for that, and then saying the vague claim that they made about the power thing, which, again, I have no fucking clue what that's in reference to. I have no fucking clue. Like, what the fuck do you mean? So yeah, it is in around season 3, I think, is when she gets the job as a reporter, because, yeah, that's the Body Snatchers one, yeah, so that's when she gets the job. This is when the Nancy Drew connection, they literally call her Nancy Drew, the men of the job that she has as a reporter, or not even as a reporter, she's the coffee deliverer, and she wants to prove herself, you know, to be among them. But they're sexist, because of course they would be in the 1980s. Of course they would be. Like, we're not in the 1990s yet, where we have slightly progressed in 2000, progressed more, and blah, etc., 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 etc. You know, you would have more discrimination the further back you go, and this is in the 1980s, when, again, going back to the gay thing, coming out as gay, because of course they also make fun of the whole Will coming out as gay bit, excluding all of his setup for that. Of course, they don't mention any of this, because they refuse to, I guess, like him in season 2 joining the Rainbow Ship, as I mentioned in my review, saying that that was the most obvious hint that he was clearly gay in season 2, and even in season 1, when the mom even alludes to the idea that he could be gay. They do mention that, and I don't remember what season this is in, so you'll have to excuse me. Who's the character I'm thinking of? they say that one of the characters says to him that it's not it's not my fault that you don't like girls. Was that the main character that said that? I think that's what their claim was, right? I think so. And I'll unpackage that, because I don't think that means what they think it means. I actually don't think so. Because they jump to the conclusion that they think that the main character already knows that he's gay. I don't think he does. Of course, I don't think anyone does. That's why he comes out and everyone's like, oh. Including him. He's like, oh. He literally... doesn't he say in Season 5, I had no idea? Doesn't he say that in Season 5? Am I making that up? Am I crazy? Oh, that happens in Season 5 when he says, I had no idea. Huh. It's almost as if they don't even mention that. Interesting. So the context of him saying earlier that, you know, it's not my fault that you don't have any girlfriends. He means yet. You haven't fallen for anyone yet. That's his perspective. Not that he's gay, that he hasn't fallen for anyone yet. To clarify what his perspective clearly is when you pay attention to basic setup and basic payoff. Fuck off, EFAP. Jesus Christ, do your fucking job. Pay the fuck attention. Jesus Christ, it's pathetic. And again, in Season 1, when Joyce says, like, he's different to Hopper, he's like, he's like, she's alluding to the idea that he could be gay, and then Hopper is like asking, is he? And then she kind of doesn't answer that, again, because she doesn't know for sure. So yeah, it's this idea, this conception, right? And then the bullies also reinforce it by directly calling him a faggot. Or a fairy later on when he returns, I think it is. And then Elle makes the bully piss his pants. I think that's when that happens, right? But of course they don't address any of that either because they don't want to do their jobs properly. Because of course not. But hey, they just want to mock Season 3 for the what they perceived as cringe when the two, when Dustin finally makes contact with his girlfriend, she proceeds to make him sing a song along with him while the others are getting chased by a creature. They just want to make fun of that, and just say it's cringe. That's their entire apparatus, which I guess that's a fair subjective opinion of the scene, I guess. I've seen other people enjoy it for a mix of comedy and horror that blends well together. I guess that would be the opposing side of that argument. Me, when I rewatched it, before I reviewed all 5 seasons, I thought it was fine. I didn't have an issue with it. It was fine. Like, whatever. I think it was kind of clear what they were trying to actually do, which is give, at least 2 of the actors at the time who were very clearly singers, because most of the casts are surprisingly singers among the Stranger Things cast, an opportunity to have an in-universe, the goofy moment to sing, and then having them be mocked later on by Max and Lucas later on. And I'm sorry, but why am I misremembering the main character's name? I can remember like most other characters' names except him for some reason. But whatever, that's on me. That's my fault. I should have looked it up beforehand. Anyway, because I'm drawing a blank again after my review of what his name was, even after their coverage. I'm like, wait, what's his name? Ah, shit. Like, I'm currently struggling right now. I'm like, right, there's Will, Dustin, Lucas, blank. And you can see I'm naming every other character, or, like the earlier characters anyway. Oh, man. Was it Will? No, Will... Oh man, why am I misremembering his name? You know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna Google search this. This is driving me nuts. Sorry, everybody. Give me a second here. I'm drawing a complete blank. Mike! Oh my god, why did I not remember his name? I have to think of like Michelangelo, I guess, because I do like these name association things to help me remember now, or at least I try to. Anyway, Mike. There we go. Mike and Will. So, yes. Again, to clarify, now that I have his name, Mike, when he says, it's not my fault that you have a disinterest in girls. Again, from his perspective, from Mike's perspective, what he means by that, based on what we see in the end, is it's not my fault you like girls, or a particular girl right now. He's assuming that Will is straight in that scene when he's saying that, because he's surprised by the coming out scene in season 5. Everybody is that's in that room. At any rate, well, except Robin, but that's because he was kind of... Robin picked up on the signals. She's the only other person that knows in that room in that moment. So other than her, sorry, to clarify. Anyway, so back to season 4, now that we have that established. Season 4 was, again, their attempt to say that season 4, oh, it's somewhat redeemed. I think season 4 is just as excellent as the first 3 seasons. Again, their offense for saying season 2 is dog shit was dog shit. Their criticisms were dog shit. Not so surprisingly, their explanations for why season 3 was a failure, it goes beyond vagary for me. Again, they just, I guess, hate the Russian subplot, but also simultaneously argue that it's only just the good parts of the 80s that they're alluding to season 3 moving forward, despite having an entire war being the clear negative outlook. Again, it seems like they're contradicting themselves in season 3 to criticize season 3, which is bizarre for me, but whatever. You know, my focus is on writing, so I don't care what the creature actually looks like. I think it looks fine in season 3, like, if you were to ask me. But again, my focus is on writing, so they go over the CGI stuff and whatever. It's, like, whatever for me, again. You know, I thought EFAP was focused on writing, but again, here we are having them skipped all of this other stuff that I had been mentioning. So again, let's go to season 4, which again, they seem to have a proclivity to say it's slightly redeemed, question mark. But they start to draw these lines that, like, oh, when a character is introduced, like, and is very likable, like, in Bob is in season 2, I think? Yes. And then season 3 was the likable character, because it can't be Billy, because he was the opposite, so I don't know who they would be pointing to in season 3, unless they were bundling Max with him, her, I don't know. they don't say. I think they allude to Max, but they also say that Max becomes a... No, they say Lucas becomes a non-character because of Max, I think is their claim. I mean... So let's go over Lucas, I guess, since that was their claim. I think that once he gets stapled onto Max, which is all the way in season 4, by the way, so we have to pre-package that by being like, okay, so what happens before? So Lucas was the ranger in the D&D sense. He was the one that was at a distance. He's the one who finds the facility. He's the one who's disagreeing with Will and Mike about, and even Dustin about Elle. He's the, he sees her as the threat. So he has that different perspective from the rest of them. But of course, the EFAP doesn't cover that at all, because of course they wouldn't. So that was season 1, Lucas. So he had differing apparent, stance from the rest of the lads on L, or 11. In season 2, I'm trying to remember, because season 2 is the Dustin incident, because that was actually their criticism, so I'm trying to remember what Lucas was doing in operations of that. Excuse me. Lucas was... What group was he a part of? Was he with... Because they're all trying to find... he's kind of with them, trying to find the polywog, but I think he's sticking to destroying it, obviously. I think he's delegated to that. This is also the introduction of Max, and they're, Dustin and Max are... Dustin and Lucas, are fighting over, or trying to gain the attention of Max, like, oh, she's, like, cool, like, I want to hang out with her, be girlfriend, like, they're trying to reach that status, right? So they're doing that, and it seems like, even early on, it seems like there was a clear connection between Lucas and her, at least who she was engaging with in terms of that. So that was season 2, in terms of the polywog incident. And then after that, I guess we can move on to season 3. There's the body snatcher aspect, and they're trying to figure out, like, as a collective mini group, is Billy the one being possessed? They, as per usual per season, create this contraption to trap Billy in the sauna, to discover if he's been taken over by the body snatcher, in which they really reveal that that is very much the case. And it is Lucas whose idea to grab the rockets. He ends up, like, saving a lot of the group a great deal of time via getting the rockets, so that was his big contribution in the end of season 3. I believe season 3 is also the introduction of his sister. I don't remember her if she's in season 2 as a character yet. So 3 introduces her as, like, she's the one constantly visiting the ice cream shop, and then they utilize her to get into the vent to do the whole, it's Steve, Robin, her, Lucas's sister, and then Dustin. Those 4 are, that's one of the subplots. They end up, like, converging on the elevator, underground, they decode the message, because they have a Russian book, but of course they refuse to acknowledge that. They say that it's because she speaks Italian. Well, she does speak Italian. They also just happen to have a Russian book on them. So she's reading the translation and then deciphering it via that. So I don't know what their criticism of that was, other than to try to mock it by not even alluding to the fact that they just had a translation book on them. Dustin did. And then she takes over on that, and then she begins to word together the message, and then later on she's the one that decodes that it's referring to positions in the mall. When Dustin discovers, when they are passing through, that the music that had been carrying through the merry-go-round, or no, wait, no, it's Steve that discovers this. He's like, "Do you have a quarter?" And then he puts it in, and then they hear the music. He's like, see, it's the same. So that's how they discover it's in the mall. So the Russians have invaded Hawkins, so that's presumably, they came from here, and then they moved the Demogorgon from that position, presumably, to Russia. Presumably. Off screen. So yeah, like, they could have criticized that, like, they did a thing off screen. Nope, of course not. See, even I can criticize the show better than they can, because of course they didn't talk about any of this stuff. They completely left out that they had a Russian translation dictionary on them, because of course they did, because EFAP is terrible. They did a terrible job covering all of Stranger Things, because of course they fucking did a terrible job covering all of Stranger Things. Jesus Christ, do a better job, please. Anyway, so you have that, all these pieces coming together. They make light of, like, okay, so now they have, oh man, it's a new character, Eddie, in Season 4, right? That's the new good character, even though they couldn't point out that in Season 3, though I guess it's supposed to be Max, according to them, even though she was introduced in Season 2, technically speaking. Anyway. So Billy makes his self-sacrifice in Season 3, by the way. They kind of brush off that to kind of go back to it later, I think, if I remember the coverage correctly. I don't know. So, yeah. It is clear to me that they sort of started to pay more attention to that story, I guess, but not the whole Russian part of it, because of course they didn't. So, pick and choose. They picked and choose their battles for season, at least from my perspective, from Season 3. So now we can move on to Season 4 proper. Season 4 was the introduction to Vecna. Now, I pointed out in my review, because of course they don't, in Season 1, you can see down the street, as I mentioned, you can see Vecna's shadow encroaching upon the street, where Will's bike is, like, off to the side. So he's encroaching very slowly. Now, you can criticize that, but they don't even bring it up, because they say, oh, they just made up Vecna in Season 4 and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, I mean, they clearly, I don't know if they added on that to, like, just re-justify it, or if it was always there. It doesn't matter to me. It's there now. That's what matters. It's the product that is there now. That's what I saw. I saw Vecna clearly encroaching on a rewatch. So that's there now. So that's there now. That means that Vecna was there since Season 1. Sorry, but not sorry. That's the answer. But now I can criticize the show properly, because there's this whole debate about the door opening for Will, because it has the lock hook on it. And whether that was the Demogorgon or Vecna or whatever. So we can actually properly criticize that, knowing that Vecna was there, objectively speaking. He's in that scene in the forest, all the way down there. So I don't know how fast Vecna is moving. He's clearly not running, he's walking. Very slowly, mind you. Toward, presumably, the house. I don't know what time it would take from him to get to the forest to the house. I don't know if the timeline adds up. That could be the criticism. It could be. How far does his actual power, based on the amount of kills, which could very well just be 0 at this juncture of his, appearance, maybe the 1 if you include his backstory, or the other kids, I guess, in the Rainbow Room. I guess you can count all of those into, because when he kills, he absorbs the people. So he has that amount of power, presumably, right? That's the best faith in terms of, in operating of understanding his power system, in Season 4 at least. In backtracking to Season 1, when we first allude to seeing him. So he has that much under his belt. Now, my understanding, based off of their description of this is how it works. He gains the person's memories, and then their quote-unquote powers. So, I guess the issue is, in terms of the powers we see, is that the powers of the kids all seem to be the same. He seems to make some sort of distinction from 411, clearly, as we see later on. He ends up trying to recruit 11 instead, to his side of the argument, and then killed the rest. So he presumably has their powers, but does that match up to 11? That is the question. Now we're dealing with power scaling, something that EFAP could never address, because they don't even know that this is an idea of what a proper criticism would actually look like, right? Now we can actually look at power scaling, because now we're actually looking at what is the rule, what is setting up the power scaling rule, how it's established, what that looks like, what that equates to. Now we can actually do that. EFAP is incapable of doing that, and thus they just say, his powers are... They just make the claim that his powers are inconsistent without doing any of the work that I just did. You see, I just did more work to criticize the show than they did in their entire shtick. That's how good I am at 200 subscribers, mind you. 200. And I did a better job at criticizing the show than the amount of, icons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guests, with all of them being YouTubers, all of them being critics, all of them presumably having watched all of these seasons, and none of them came close to making this type of criticism. That is pathetic. Get fucking good at your jobs, please, and thank you. Get good, as it were. Applying gaming logic to reviewing logic. Please get the fuck good, please. Because the way I see it, you're making money on slop right now. This is slop. This critique is fucking slop. It is pathetic. There is no excuse for this absolute, just abysmal critique of Stranger Things. And I was able, at a 200 subscriber count, able to do a better job at critiquing the show than 7 quote-unquote professional reviewers. Give me a fucking break. Get fucking good. Rags, Mauler, Fringy, TheLittlePlatoon, I think that's Starwars Girl there, the next icon. I don't know who that next icon is. And then Nerdortic. Get fucking good. Please. What the fuck was this? This is fucking pathetic. Thank you. Jesus Christ. It's not that hard to criticize a show, but at least do it right. At least do your due diligence. At least when you say we watch a show, prove it by saying the things that I just said. Make actual critique. Don't just say, because character make mistake equal bad. What the fuck is that? That's fucking pathetic. That's abysmal. How does a writer get any better hearing that bullshit? How? That is pathetic. It is a mockery of critique. It is just a joke, I guess. And they get paid to do this. They get paid. I do not. And I did a fucking better job. It's pathetic. Jesus Christ. I deserve to be angry. This is pathetic. And they get paid. They get paid to do this slop. This fucking pathetic slop of critique. Get fucking good. Fucking please. Earn your fucking paychecks. Do not say you are a fucking critic and come at this with a pathetic critiquing style that is just easily so refutable. Jesus fucking Christ. It is pathetic to see. It is pathetic to see. I'm sorry for the outburst, but it is well deserved. This has to be their worst episode by far. Easily. This is pathetic. Anyway, let us move on to the rest of Season 4, shall we? Anywho, now that we're back at Season 4, so now we have Eddie, and of course they don't talk about any of the other victims by name, because of course they don't. There was Christy, she was the first victim. She goes through her incident, we see this in the opening. So they vaguely don't even talk about this, not so surprisingly. So she is seeing the visions first. This is our opening episode. That is what gets her to go to Eddie, the drug supplier / D&D medalist that we see introduced in Season 4. So now we have some rapport of actual character. I'd wanted to establish that because, of course, EFAP didn't do their fucking job on that either. Unfortunately for me, and I will admit this, because even I will admit my flaws, unlike EFAP, I don't remember the second character's name. I do know that it was Nancy's, co-worker. I don't remember his name, the second victim. And I don't remember the third victim's name, but I do know his position is one of the jocks that was with the main jock. And then Max was the final victim. I at least remember their archetypes, at the very most. They don't address any of the three, because of course not, because of course they couldn't even address the setup and payoffs to all of that, of all of Vecna's victims. They just wanted to jump to the victims had similar, symptoms. But no, they didn't want to do any of the pre-proposed setup to get us to that payoff. Because they just want to paint he wanted to say the Russo brothers, the Duffer brothers, as these bad writers. It's like, no, pay the fuck attention, actually say what the setup is, and then deliver on the payoff, because I'm telling you, they know how to do that. It's very clear they knew how to do it in Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and continuously in Season 4, so I'm really tired of hearing that they are bad writers, and me being able to explain how they're good writers, and still be able to critique them. You see what the fuck I just did? I just dismantled their entire main apparandi and calling the Duffer Brothers shitty writers, with one fell swoop. By just saying one simple thing. That's all I had to do, but I had decided to make this hour-long continued video to dismantle this absolute bullshit of a video of EFAP's coverage because it was dog shit. Pun re-intended, thank you very much. Now that we have the modus operandi of Christy being the first victim, Eddie is a witness to this. He's in the, they go to his, like trailer home to find the drugs that for purchase. She's seeing the images of Vecna encroaching on her and so on and so forth. Obviously, Vecna is a play on Freddy Krueger. As I alluded to, they actually got Robert Englund, who they, of course, don't even mention that Robert Englund actually appears in this, because of course they fucking don't. But at least they mentioned it was based on Freddy. At least they got that far. Fuck me. Jesus Christ. At least they understood that. My God. Jesus. Anyway. So, getting back to it. They do that. They get to the trailer. She is deep in the cycle, as it were. She's been prone to the amount of attacks, and now she's ripe, as it were. She's, you know, as they claim in the context of the show, they call it a curse, Vecna's curse, right? Of course, EFAP doesn't address this as Vecna's curse, because of course they fucking don't. But I want to use the show's writing to back my claims, so that's what I'll do. So it's Vecna's curse in action here, and it's at the end of it here in this scene. This is when we see the horrific imagery of her bones, her body like snapping and the jaw dropping and the eyes popping and so on and so forth, and Eddie is a witness to all of this. And thus, when Eddie escapes, this is his, you know, he runs away, as he alludes to later. This is his, you know, his modus operandi, according to him. That's his criticism of himself, is that, you know, in the world of D&D, him as a dungeon master, he gets to be sort of this ruler, sort of this, you know, this collaborator of effort and fun and, you know, competition and, you know, this freedom of expression and all this, all that D&D has to offer. You know, he gets to do all of that. But when it actually comes to this real, you know, as they manage to allude to decently here, I'll give EFAP some credit, at least. Again, good faith now, as I've been consistently throughout this. But that also means calling them out on their bullshit, which has been most of the rest of this, too, by the way. Just to clarify. So, to their credit, they actually do mention how, you know, this is really good writing in terms of Eddie, in terms of, like, building him up really early on, which I would argue they did for Bob, which they did for Max, which I argue they did for, well, most of characters in Season 1. I guess they would agree with that assessment. So, you know, again, I think they exclude Season 1, so I'm trying to do the same in good faith here. So, again, in Season 2, there was Bob. That would be the character. He's well developed. He's well written, I would argue, to very much, too. And then you have Max in Season 2 and then 3, conjunction together, I guess. Being, like, she transitioned into a better character through her interactions with Billy and all of that. So I guess that would be the standout character in Season 3, would be Max, among them. And then Season 4 would be Billy. Point being is I can point to any given season and point out, oh, that's a good character. Now, they just hate Robin. I'm just going to point that out. I don't know why. They just say, oh, she's degrading and talks a lot. That's it. That's their entire criticism. That's it. Literally, that is it. That is their entire criticism. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what they meant when they said she changed. I don't know what they meant, because she seemed to be always very talkative, even before the drug part, which we'll talk about. That's Season 3. That's Season 3 when she comes out. Yes. Okay. Because that's during the Russia bit. So let's backtrack. Sorry. Sorry, season 4. So Robin is a character that is introduced in season 3 and working at the mall. She becomes interested in what Dustin and Steve are doing, so she gets encroached in their system. And so she joins them, and she's already very talkative. She's mocking Steve for every attempt. He's like hitting on the ladies here because the whole breakup happened already. But I guess that's fine for Steve to do. But when Nancy's struggling between Steve and Jonathan, that's bad just because Nancy's bad just because. But no, since Steve is now broken up, and when he does it to various girls, she has a clear marker. I think there were 6 marks, so he did that to 6 other ladies. He was flirting with 6 other ladies. That's on Robin's thing. That's fine when he does it, but oh no, Nancy, she's the problem. She's the leech. I don't remember what word they used for her. Like, she leeches off of, like, again, I have no fucking clue what their issue with Nancy is. Like, she is one of the best characters in Stranger Things. What else can I say? I don't know what their issue with her is. Because they never give any detail. They just say, she is this, but they don't give me anything to work with. They just say, just like Dustin, they just make the claim. They don't back up the fucking claim. Like, what the fuck? I'm sorry to go back on a secondary rant, but what the fuck? You mean to tell me you're just gonna make claims and not back that up? I thought that was EFAP's entire fucking job. What the fuck? Jesus Christ, get good. Tell me what you mean when you say Nancy is, and excuse me for not even remembering what the fuck their term was. Again, I'm gonna, like, paraphrase, because I don't even remember what it was. They said she leeches off of them, or something along those lines. I don't remember what they called her. But they just call Robin a bitch. And then proceed to mock her because she's a lesbian. That comes out better than Will. I don't know what else to say to that other than, wow, that's 2 for 2. But they like Max because she's a tomboy, I guess. So when when there's a lesbian, there's an issue. When there's a someone who is fighting the feminine role, that being Nancy, during her season, that's just an issue, because she's investigating, and then, I think she asked Jonathan to join him, and it was his choice. He could have refused, by the way. That was on him to go with her. That was his fault, not hers, that he got fired, not hers, even though he blames her. That was him. That was his choice. I'm sorry. Does Jonathan not have agency for that critique to make any logical follow-through sense? He's the one who decided to follow Nancy. I don't know what else to say. Like, this is really basic shit. He has fucking agency. That was his choice when she asked him to go. And he said yes! That was his fault. His fault, he got fired. No like, what the fuck? So yeah, I don't know why they say Nancy's at fault. That was Jonathan's choice to go with Nancy, to fucking clarify. But of course they would blame it on Nancy because, just because a woman back then in the 1980s would want to break the cycle of feminism, in sexism more importantly, in that era, to fight against that, especially back then, would have been a really tough thing to do, especially in the marketplace of jobs, given the context we are given when we see her trying to, she goes in the room and says, hey, here's a cool story, and they all mock her for it, and it's like, we're just gonna fucking ignore you, lady. You go back and fetch us your, coffee or whatever. Like, yeah, that's on them. That's not Nancy's fault. What the fuck? You gonna tell me that's Nancy's fault? Fuck off. So, yeah, she's trying to pursue, like, journalism. That's, like, fucking awesome. Like, she's trying to, you know, like, work her way up. That's awesome. But she's struggling. She's a character that struggles. But, again, it was Jonathan's choice to go with her. That's his fault to do that. That's on him. He got fired, too. They both get fired. There are consequences for their actions. Oh my god, consequences? The thing that they don't even mention that happened to Nancy also? She also got fired. Spoiler alert. They say, oh, she got Jonathan fired. She gets fired too, you fucking dimwits. Fuck off. And Jonathan went with her. That was his choice, not hers. So it's his fault he got fired. To fucking clarify, not hers. So fuck off trying to blame Nancy for Jonathan's choice. Fuck off, EFAP. That was some sexist fucking bullshit if I've ever seen any. And again, they just hate Robin for being talkative and being a lesbian, I guess. Even though they slightly defend her coming out scene, but they just have much of an issue for Will, who is set up more than Robin for coming out than her, because she was introduced in that season, but they have a serious issue when he does it, and they just call it cringe. That was their fucking entire criticism, and they make the same criticism I have seen so many other people make. Oh, why did he come out to everyone that was in that room? That was his fucking choice. Pay the fuck attention. He says that. He says, I want everyone here. That was his choice to make. What the fuck? Pay the fuck attention. Jesus Christ. If you're gonna criticize it, mention that. But no, of course they don't. They don't mention that that was Will's choice to bring everyone in. He says everyone should hear this. That was his choice. Fuck, that was his agency. In the 1980s, when coming out in the 1980s in real life, as I mentioned in my review, because of course I would do the extra legwork, unlike EFAP, coming out in that era would have gotten you killed. Very likely so. Again, that even happened in the 1990s, and I mentioned a story of how that happened in the 1990s. When I was in high school, I mentioned how there is a gay guy coming out, he gets killed by these religious folks, because of course they're religious, and they spline him up on the fence and they gut out his guts. Paraphrasing the article there. A real article in real life. So coming out was, it was not easy. And it was still his choice to come out to everyone in the group. I'm claiming that is how hard it was, to clarify. But they make a joke of it. They just say it's cringe. They just say, they make the critique of everyone's there. That was his choice. They don't pay attention to the things that he says leading up to the scene. They just jump to saying it's cringe. It's like, fucking pay attention. That was his choice. That was his agency. That was his risk to take in the 1980s. Please put all the puzzle pieces in place before you just say, oh, cringe. Please fuck off with this lazy fucking critique. It's pathetic. And we'll talk even more about that because I think it's, for a coming out scene, it's one of the better ones in terms of writing. But of course, no, it's whatever, fuck off. Anyway, season 4, so she has less setup and payoff. She just gets drugged. So if anything, the critique should be on her. In her writing, she gets drugged. That's kind of lazy if you ask me. A little bit. It's like she was kind of drugged. See? Like, I can critique them better. the Duffer Brothers better than these fucks, because they want to make the claim that that was somehow better, that she was drugged, therefore good. And I'm like, no, that's the opposite of good. That's sort of on the lazier side of writing. You see, a more effective coming out story has setups and payoffs. That's what equals good writing. Just having a convenience of a drug and a truth-telling drug at that, that's a little bit of a convenience. It's a little bit of a helpful tool to get you to that conclusion. That's a bit of a cop-out. That's lazier than the Will coming out scene. Fuck off, it's reversed. Fuck off, EFAP. Get your facts straight and actually criticize what deserves to be criticized. It was lazier when Robin came out than Will. Don't get it fucking twisted, and I've heard other people make that critique, and they're all fucking wrong. Every single one of them are wrong. Fuck off. It's like, Jesus Christ, learn the writing basics, please, and thank you. Not just EFAP, because I've heard other people make that pathetic critique that somehow that Robin's coming out scene is better than Will's. Fuck off! What do you mean better? It's worse! I mean, again, based on the context, based on what happens, based on the writing, it's slightly worse. There's convenience for it. Again, I just said that, and I made the proof. They just happen to have the Russians just have a drug-telling truth serum that just happens to work, that just happens to get her and Steve to start babbling on to each other in this truthful manner, and then they make their way out of to the Russian base, and they make, because they're still in America, in that mall, they're underneath it, in this section, they work their way out with Dustin, and I don't remember Lucas's sister's name off the top of my head. That's the other character whose name escapes me, so that's on my bad again. But her, that group, they get out. They get to the bathroom stall. The drugs are still in effect, so it still has that convenience attached to it. So they're testing if the drug is still in effect. So they're asking each other questions, and then that's when she comes out in a roundabout way of saying, like, she mentions this girl at some point, and I'm kind of vaguely recalling this scene as best as I can. She mentions, like, talking about Steve and his proclivities and flirting and all of that, because the girl that she liked Steve, I think is the story here, if I remember all the writing here. And then, like, that was her first attachment, and then she kind of brings it to herself, saying, like, how it was more so on me. This is more so for me. This whole finding this puzzle piece, as I think she puts it, about me, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a bit more convenient that she comes out. And I think the Duffer Brothers kind of mock that idea later on. She does herself. It's like, when Will comes out, she says, at least you didn't have to take the drug, you were on the drugs to come out. They mock their own thing, because that deserves actual critique. So his coming out story has more setup and more payoff than hers, and has none of the convenience. But no, his is somehow worse because time and because cringe. That's the vagary of every critique, and they're all pathetic. Every single fucking one is pathetic. Jesus Christ. Do better at critique. Please and thank you. Anyway, back to Season 4 proper, because we're not even at Season 5. Season 4, So then, and you know, they kind of jump ahead to Eddie's death, which they critique. And I think there's something to be said about that. I think it's a semi-fair complaint. Again, in good faith of EFAP here. Again, so his story thus far he's run away from Christie, and from his perspective, that was him, you know, alluding to that first time that, and when it actually comes to the rough and tumble of it, he will run away. And from his perspective, not what EFAP mentions, so now I'm back on the attack, from his perspective, he was the last one to join in the Upside Down. And I think, and I could be paraphrasing, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't remember exactly what he says, but when he joins the others last, he mentions that that was out of a necessity of, like, needing to escape, to run. That was from his perspective. Again, they don't mention this because they don't want to paint that as, like, they want to, like, try to defend Eddie from their perspective, but they're not even considering his perspective, because of course they don't want to do that. So anyways, from his perspective, Eddie's, that's how he sees it, as this sort of like, I can't stay here, I'm still gonna get arrested, I have no choice but to run. That was his perspective. What else can I say, other than that was his perspective to do that? Anyway, so, now to get to that scene, Eddie's death scene, so he's with Dustin. And their job, they are near the van, and they are near the escape back to the right side up, their world, right? It's their job to be the decoys, the distraction, because at Vecna's house, there's the demi birds, or dragons, or whatever they're called, the flying creatures. They're all surrounding the house, and the group outside waiting for the house is waiting for a opportunity to encroach, but they don't want to, you know, encroach and then have all the creatures so easily spot them and kill all four of them before they can even make it in. So they want him and Dustin to be the decoys. So that's their job. At any rate, again, they don't even critique this. I don't remember how far the radio contact is between the two groups, but my critique would have been they should have been at least in a little bit more contact, during this portion. That they don't even bring that up. See, again, I can critique the show better than they can. Fuck me, I guess. Like, I just pulled that up, and they didn't even bring this up. Like, why weren't they communicating a little bit more in this portion? They just kind of go, they're only communicating via phase of you know, because each season has, like, the planning phase section. I think every season has this. Yes, I'm pretty sure every season has this. As, like, a callback to every previous season, and then, you know, it sort of like creates a formula for their writing style. I'm not saying that's neither good nor bad, by the way. I'm just putting that out there. So now, so I can critique that scene better because they should have been in a little bit more communication. That much is clear. So Dustin is calling out because Eddie starts to play his song. So Eddie's on the lookout. Dustin is on the lookout, excuse me, of the demi birds coming in. Once he spots them, he warns, and then he proceeds to keep playing until they're close enough, and then they get ready to leave. Dustin escapes first. Now again, I critiqued it better in saying this is where he should have communicated to them, like, hey, I give you more time. That should have been his question to them, so they can communicate back, oh, we're good. Like, that could have saved Eddie's life, is Eddie's proclivity to contact them. See, I critiqued the show better than EFAP did, because I did a better job at pointing out Eddie's mistake here, instead of just jumping to, oh, he ran off again, or he was prepping to again, and that was their critique. It's like, no, you can critique the show, the Eddie's death scene before that, actually, and do it properly. So that's on him, Eddie. That was his mistake, and the writer's mistake, I think, as well. So Dustin gets out. So now Eddie has no clue, because they haven't been keeping in contact with each other than the phase part of, like, where they are in terms of, like, if they need more time or less time or whatever. So he assumes now, based on nothing, that he needs to create more time. He's, like, ready to jump back, but he's, like, thinking to himself, fuck, do they need more time? Let me fucking just be a distraction even longer. So now he heads out and runs based off of that assumption. So my criticism comes before. Their criticism is to jump from this point moving forward. And it's like, no, that's not actually the good critique. EFAP fucked up here on their behalf. So their critique means nothing to me. It's pathetic. It's just nonsense. Their critique should have come before. Anyway, so now we have the proper critique to function with. That being a better form of communication between the two groups here. Now we can critique him riding off, because now it's based off of that assumption that he made, Eddie. And now he's riding off and, bicycling off, and then the creatures start to, instead of going after Dustin, they're all chasing him. And then, he sees the initial thing as running. He sees jumping in last as running, and then he's running now. So that's from his perspective. Again, all three of those examples were from his perspective, running away, so he stops. He actively chooses to stop. I'm not critiquing his choice to stop. Notice that. I'm just pointing it out. It was his choice to stop and begin to fight. When he said himself he can never be the hero, and he starts to try to kill as many of the demi-birds as much as possible. And then we have the montage of the different groups losing, as it were. Because while this is happening, we get Steve's group, which is Robin, Nancy, and Jonathan's not with them. And no, I think it's those three. Yes, the three of them are the ones that are encroaching upon the upside down version of Vecna. But they get entangled by the tentacle things that are, like, a part of the hive mind of the house. So they get caught. And then, as that is happening, we're segmenting between that and Eddie's, attempting to fight off as many of these things as possible. And then there's the third side plot of what Elle is doing, 11, which is, like, trying to hijack to get to Vecna from when Max, who is inside the real world house of Vecna house, to piggyback off of her to her memories to fight that version of Vecna, which via hive mind would affect the other Vecna and all the other creatures along with it. So, we have all that going on. And then in that process, Dustin realizes that he heads back, he injures his leg. In the process, he tries to catch up, but it's too late, Eddie dies. And then, you know, the other groups are struggling, and then 11 through Max begins to fight back there. And so on and so forth. And they eventually come back, which allows eventually for Nancy's group or Steve's group or whatever, who is the group leader there, to escape because the tentacles retreat since the hive mind is being hurt again. So they're able to get up, and then Nancy, as of course was set up since season 1 that she was the gunning expert. She's the one with the shotgun in hand, because of course she would be. And the other two are further back. One of them has the Molotov cocktail. I believe that's Robin. Steve has a close range weapon, I believe. So it's Nancy who's moving forward as Vecna is already being being injured by 11's actions, and then they Molotov cocktail him first, and then she's doing the shotgun thing, and then he's being propelled further and further back until he is shoved out the window, thus leading to his defeat, which then as Dustin is encroaching upon the incident, the rest of the demi-birds, they all fall, which is why they are not in season 5. They all die, because they are all part of that particular hive mind of Vecna, in this iteration of Vecna anyway. That's why they are not in season 5, so that is why they are not in the defensive world, and so too are not the Demigorgons or Demidogs, because they also died before that. So please pay the fuck attention. That's why there was no defensive, because here's the real problem with Vecna that no one can seem to actually point out. Vecna was too busy being on the offensive. He kept sending his creatures out into the world, and when his creatures kept inevitably dying, whether it was due to 11 or getting to him directly in the case of season 4 here, it was them, the group, finally fighting back. They were on the defensive, to be clear, a lot of the time. This is the first time all the way in season 4, other than in season 3 at the end, where they are on the offensive. A lot of season 1 is where is Will, so there's not a lot of fighting happening here at this time in sequence. Season 2 has the Body Snatchers, which isn't a lot of them fighting necessarily. They do inevitably fight that creature, though they don't kill it. Until it turns into the bigger entity in season 3, obviously. Then that's when they kill it through that means. So again, that's when they finally start taking the offensive. They have switched parameters from seasons 2 to 3 from being on the defensive mode to offensive. They are starting to do it at the end of season 3, and now at the start of season 4, they're starting to go on the attack. That is, cause and effect, setup and payoff, paying attention to season 3 to 4, continuity, good writing, different things are happening. I just wanted to point that out in case of any allusions to why the battlefield of Vecna in season 5 would be pretty much empty. That's because, again, they've been on the offensive since season 4, and they killed off pretty much everything via the hive mind, the exception being Vecna himself. That's the only thing that survived that encounter. So he had to recoup. And yes, he spent that entire 18 months presumably recouping. That's the only thing I can say on that matter. Based on the timeline between 4 and 5. Seasons 4 and 5, to be clarifying that. So, yes, they defeat Vecna, presumably in Season 4, which causes the rest of the attack to die. Again, he's never been on defensive mode. He's always been an offensive attacker. Through his methods. Whether that being finding his victims. And once it seems that he has, in Vecna's curse, in good faith of the show, because EFAP of course doesn't do this, is like, they make the claim like, oh, couldn't he just kill anybody? No, that's bad faith. That's just, to me, that's already bad faith. Just saying that alone. It's like, good faith, please. So, in recollection of being good faith to the show, once Vecna's curse hits whoever it's hitting, that's the person he needs to kill. It has to be that person or that group of people. So when he selects his 4, it has to be each one of those 4 targets. That's why he has to kill Max. It has to be her, specifically, not anybody else. It has to be Max. That's the person he cursed. That's how that works. In good faith. That's how good faith works. Basic logic of that nature. At any rate, moving to Season 5, a lot of people hate Season 5, including EFAP, not so surprisingly. I don't get any of their criticisms. Not a single one. I think Season 5 is fine. It's good. And it has a fine coming out scene. It's a solid coming out scene. It has a fine break-up scene between Jonathan and... Jonathan and Nancy. That scene is also fine. Everything is fine in Season 5. No issues. But EFAP, of course, they take issues with just about everything. Oh, Holly is suddenly a character, that's just an issue. Even though they also then claim that she's a good character or good actress all of a sudden. I don't know. So I don't know what the deal with that is. The sudden flip, I guess. But anyway. So, just to say our full state of affairs, so Dustin is grieving, obviously, over Eddie. And, he's rocking the Hellfire shirt in sort of this, like, I'm honoring you lifestyle. But that gets him in a bit of trouble in the opening with the 3 remaining jock bullies. The two that weren't killed, there was one of the victims, and then there was the other guy that was attacking Lucas, whose body gets ripped in half horrifically. They say that they don't care, that the writers don't care. He got ripped in half. I think that's a pretty brutal way to go. I don't know what else to say other than that was fucking brutal. And yeah, he's probably going to kill Lucas if that didn't happen. Lucas managed to fight him back long enough to not have that happen, luckily. So he was able to defend himself properly, and then his positioning when he fell over and was, I think he was knocked out via that, when Lucas started fighting back. Where he was positioned just happened to be where that rift started to crack, so his body was split in twain from his midsection. So yeah, it was brutal, but like, I don't know, I don't know what else to say other than that's what just happened. They just say it's bad, but they don't, because, I don't know, they say he didn't deserve a gruesome death, but I guess they forgot, again, in Season 3, all the people that glooped into that monster. I guess they just forgot about all those people. It seems like they're being a bit picky and choosy there, I don't know, but unless they forgot, or unless they wanted to be that disingenuous and just pick him for some reason. I don't know. Like, again, I don't know what their modus operandi was for that one. I couldn't tell you. At any rate, back to season 5. So they just have an issue with, Dustin is wearing the shirt. He's trying to honor, Eddie. So he gets bullied, beaten up a little bit. But the others, Lucas happens to get there, and sure, you can call that convenience, whatever. I don't really care at this point, because EFAP's not gonna, they're just gonna say it's bad, which they do. So Lucas happens to be there, which I don't think is neither good nor bad. It's just a convenience. So convenience is neither good nor bad, unless the convenience is so far stretched that you can prove that it's bad. It's like, I don't think this is too bad. He just happens to be in the hallway. It's like, Anyway, he comes forward, and they, mock his comeback, I guess. He says he's gonna kick him in the balls, and they're like, oh, no, you can't do that. It's like, I don't know, whatever. But it is their group persuasion that manages to get them to back off for now. But Dustin is not quite done with them. And again, this is another moment where Dustin fucks up. And the show clearly shows that this is another one of his fuck-ups. But hey, since it's another one of his fuck-ups, it's just equal to bad writing. I guess since he's more directly responsible, now we can say he's a bad pet owner. The other time, it's like, he thought it was a pollywog, a new species of pollywog. It was, at least in that stage that he was seeing it in, it didn't look like a typical Demogorgon, so that connection, that leap doesn't even make any logical sense, so I don't know why they criticized that the way they did, but whatever. That's neither here nor there. I already litigated that already, so I'm not going to do it a second time. At any rate, for this, he proceeds to get a snake and move it into the locker of the main of the three jocks, the new one that's in charge, I guess, of the three of them, the one that initially targets him. So he puts it in that guy's locker to give him a little bit of the spook and say Hellfire lives on the locker as well. So he has made that proclamation. He wants to, stir the pot after being assaulted. So he's trying to get a little bit of revenge here. That's his perspective here. But his way of doing it was bad, obviously. But it was on the bullies. They were the ones that killed the snake. So that's on them. Sure, it was Dustin that put the snake there, but it was the bullies that killed the snake. They are the bad people in that. They are the ones responsible for that. Not Dustin, though they could have, again, it was their choice. They could have just moved the snake back. That could have been a thing they did. But no, they were the ones that killed the snake, used its blood to write in Eddie's grave, as a comeback to the comeback, as it were, and then proceed to bully again. So there's this back and forth, but now I've fully committed to going in the back and forth, unlike them, where they just say, oh, that just makes Dustin a bad pet owner. And I'm saying he made a mistake in putting it in the locker, but it's the bullies that killed the snake. You see the distinction I'm making? I'm separating the two parties and holding both of them accountable separately. Dustin made the mistake of putting the snake in the locker. They, the bullies, made the mistake and error of killing the snake. That's more egregious on them than Dustin putting it in the locker. They had the choice to just move the snake. The bullies did. or, you know, giving it back to Dustin, but they were never going to do that. So, you know, just putting it back would have probably been the best of the options for them. But no, they killed the snake. They are the guilty party now. That's on them, not Dustin. It was Dustin's mistake to put it in the locker. Not the snake's death, the locker. I'm making the distinction. EFAP does not, because they just want to say, fuck Dustin in this moment. No, that's not good enough. I will not allow that. No thank you. I want to split the parties and make sure who's responsible is the responsible party for each dissection, because I want to critique or praise the show properly, unlike EFAP. So there, that's how you do that. You're welcome, EFAP. I did your job better for you, yet again. Now that that's covered, we can move on to Holly. So, to now clarify, Vecna has a new mechanism. He's, you know, licked his wounds. Now he's after more victims, each to fill a spire spot in the actual, like, to the Mind Flayer. So there are like 12 slots required. This is the new McMuffin of the season. It was 4 before, and it's up, yes, it is up the amount of things needed. But that is because, you know, his plan is on a much bigger scale, so that logically follows that we would need more people to do it, to do what it's trying to do. That being, in accordance to the writing itself, is merging the planets, as everyone puts it. So, see, I'm explaining the rule behind it in good faith. They just say it's bad. They just say, it's a random upper number. I'm trying to, in good faith, go, maybe this is why it's higher. It's because it's trying to create a bigger scale of, you know, what Vecna is trying to accomplish, so he needs more vessels to accomplish creating that much more power to, you know, in his goal, fuse the planets. See, that's good faith. But they're bad faith. They just go, it's 12, blah, 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 random number, fuck off. Like, no. Please, put a little effort. Like, I'm doing good faith here. I'm like, okay, let's see if I can take what's given to me, put it into context, and then do my fucking job. So the writing, by the way, does not have to spell that out. That's just implied via the number. The number told me that okay, since there's more 12, you know, 12 kids in this case, unlike Will being one kid who was stolen initially, and then 4 victims that were stolen to crack just the town in half. That's what the goal was then. So 4 equated to that much power. 4 was the town. So 12 equals the fusing of the planets. That's, again, I'm just matching what the show is setting up via just using the numbers and saying, okay, what does that equate to in terms of what happens? You see, that's what I just did. EFAP just said, oh, it's just a number. Like, fuck! How do I do a better job? 200 subscribers, and I did a better job at being good faith for the show in Season 5 than just saying, oh, it's just 12, it's just a number, it's just growing, it's just whatever. Because they want to just fuck and say Season 5 is dog shit, and I'm saying, like, well, hold on. Let's actually think about why the number would increase, why it would be 12. You know, it's an amplifier of power. That makes logical sense. Logic! Use it! Use it, as Blade would say. So there you go. I did a better job at EFAP. Yet again, not so surprising. So Holly is among the first. And, you know, Vecna's really proud that he picked her out. So he's visiting her, doing a much, because he's getting smarter as each victim he's claiming. In season 4 he tried the more horrific approach, draining people of their power. This time he's changing his strategy. He's smarter. He's going, that didn't work. Let me try manipulating them to join me willingly. Let me gaslight these kids. Fuck it, that could work. So he does it to Holly. He's like, oh, the monsters, they're gonna get you. I'm the good guy, I'm gonna help you. So now he's gaslighting. So he's trying to change his system. So now I'm telling you, no, Vecna's plan is actually smart. Their claim is that Vecna's plan is just stupid, and they just jumped to the same conclusion that every critiquer did of, oh, why weren't there any monsters on the planet, without thinking all of his monsters just died in season 4, so why would they be there in season 5? That makes no logical sense if you care about fucking consistency, EFAP. I thought that was one of your pillars. So excuse fucking me for paying attention to season 4 and then carrying that over to season 5. All of the demi-birds, dead. All of the demi-gorgons, dead-ish. Except the ones that are collecting the kids. But all of them get fucking killed too, because he's going back on the attack at some point. So those are the remaining demogorgons, presumably, that are being birthed in the process, in good faith of the show. That's how that would function. That part of that mentality is still, when he's attacking, he's going to send them, well, to attack. So, at first, his strategy is seemingly gaslighting, and it's working. He gets Holly hooked, line and sinker. So now that he has her in her possession in that sense, now he can portal in directly to her. Because, since the tactics change, that allows her to drop her guard in that way. Which aligns with, now that the creatures have an easier access via portals of the demogorgons remain, it is to primarily capture the kids for, as I mentioned, the 12 of them, to create said power. So he sends a demogorgon, 2 in fact, I believe, one at the top of the roof of Holly's room. She's freaking out, of course, and then she goes running to the mom, whose name I don't remember off the top of my head, so I'll just refer to her as the Wheeler's mom. So there's that. So she's running off and, saying monster, and of course they had not told her, the rest of the family, her and the husband included, of the incidents that have occurred. They're just, he's like listening to the news, and he's like going like, oh, everything's still a conspiracy theory, everything's like, because, they have not been directly affected by any of the events. We have not, that's the perspective they're coming at this from. But of course, EFAP needs to make some sort of jab of saying, oh, they're just lazy. It's like, well, no. And they make the claim, like, they try to make the critique, like, why wouldn't they just, the military, that being, kick out the entire town? So, here's, and, I think that's their best critique, to give them, again, some credit. But I'm going to try to defend it on the because now I'm going to have to write for the show a bit, because I actually do agree with their critique in this sense. So I'm going to actually have to write for the show a bit. Why would the military still want the people at any given space, particularly here? It's to create the illusion of safety and normalcy. That's their whole apparandi, so they can continue to search for 11 with as little, without having to worry about people complaining and wanting back in, because, people would probably not want to abandon their homes, but, quarantine doesn't seem so optimal either. So it's a lose-lose situation either way. So I think they picked the convenience factor here for the town, and for the, you know, the illusion of like everything's fine, don't worry, the military's got your back. You know, they're selling the imagery of the military here. That would be my good faith interpretation of what's happening. And of course I have to do a little writing for the show because they never address why they don't kick everyone out, particularly. But that's my best faith interpretation of why the military would have done, you know, taken the position of letting the town people be quarantined versus kicking them out. It would have caused the military more issues to look for 11, not less. That's why. Because that's their entire goal. I mentioned that in my review, by the way, that's their entire goal. That's the entire reason that they are there, is to capture and kill 11. Because they think everything's on her. They have no fucking clue about Vecna. They never find out about Vecna. They think that she's summoning the Demogorgons at this point. They think that's her. They want to kill her. And to clarify, the EFAP makes the mockery that, you know, the military is split in two. There are two groups, kind of. And I don't remember the names. There's this one doctor that seems to be more so on her side, and there's one woman who seems to be with him on the. And those two. And then one military guy. There's 3 characters within the military that... So, this idea that they're broken up into 2 factions, it seems to me that there are 3 people within the military that seem to be on, you know, on Eleven's side. They're taking her perspective. They want to help her. That's not a faction breakup. That's bad faith on EFAP's part. Those are 3 characters among the entire military, to clarify. That is not a fucking faction. Like, how the fuck do you say there's, like, 2 factions? I don't understand. In fact, the military go after the guy, the other scientist guy, a point, because he'd taken 11's side. And I don't... Yeah, there were... Okay, maybe there was a faction, because he has his squad in that base, so he does have those people, the fan base, as he puts it. You know, when they're walking through, he's narrating to her about how, yeah, okay, now I know what they mean, sorry, but I don't know, because they, of course, as predictable as EFAP is, they don't clarify what they mean by the factioned military group. So that they're the ones that are under the doctor that are, you know, as he's narrating, as he has brought her back in to get her powers back, the people there presumably are on her side accordingly. And there's the guy, you know, and you know, fair enough, they critique that guy, Papa, as I'll refer to him as, because I don't remember his name either. Papa, El's father, quote unquote, you know, died, quote unquote, but he died off screen. You know, I'll give that one to EFAP, fair enough. That one was a little bit lazy, like, how the fuck did he even survive? Fair enough. You know, and they critique, like, oh, Hopper dies in each season, or there's a fake out of Hopper in each season. Was there one in season 2? I'm trying to remember. There's, in season 1, hold on, let me backtrack all the way to season 1, because I'm thinking back to their other criticisms of season 5. At some point they mentioned, like, oh, Hopper has all these fake out deaths. So in season 1 there was, let's see, that's them searching for Will, and then it's Hopper and Joyce that are looking for Will. Does he have a near-death experience in season 1? I would have to rewatch season 1 because I don't remember. There's season 2. you know, Will's back, but we have, you know, he's been taken over, the spy, as it were. But in terms of Hopper, he, in season 2, I think they're alluding to the idea when he's in the tunnels, when Will's trying to find him later on, that this would count as his first fake-out death, him being caught by the tentacle monster thing that captures him at some point, and, like, holds him in a position. But he's saved. So I guess that one would be the one that... But, of course, they don't even mention this. They don't make a direct reference, so I guess that's supposed to be one? I think. Again, they don't count it, so I don't know. I think that's meant to be one. Again, I'm trying to be good faith to EFAP here, in case anyone's not thinking that I'm trying to be fair here, and as objective as possible. So then in season 3, because they also don't cover Hopper's one in season 3. No, they do point this one out. It's when Joyce is getting ready to turn the two keys to prompt to turn the device off. They say the keys are pointless. It's to turn the device off, so they just fucking lied about that on top of this. But Hopper's on the on a side. He's like on the corner side of the this platform of this thing, and like on his right, I believe it is the machine. And it's like blasting this energy beam into the doorway, and then it, like, when she turns the thing off, it like propels backward, meaning away from Hopper. So it's killing everyone this way. Hopper's on the other side of the beam. It is presumed he jumps, though we see the explosion. This is meant to be I guess, a fake-out death. I presumed he jumped into the gate. That's what I assumed when I first watched it, and I rewatched it. I don't know what they meant, but I guess they just categorize this as a fake death or whatever, but I assumed he jumped in good faith, and that's, I guess, what happened. He jumped. That's clearly what must have happened, because he's in season 4, clearly. So, again, I just go on good faith of the show now and say that he clearly jumped. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in season 4. That just logically follows. So I wouldn't count that necessarily, because I don't think that would count as a fake-out death. We don't see what happens to him, sure, but I'm not sure that counts as a fake-out death necessarily. So yeah, he's in season 4, so again, in good faith, we can say he jumped. There we go. Just third time in case anyone wants to combat that. But anyway, season 4 is Vecna, and I'm trying to think of, did Hopper even have a fake-out death in season 4? I don't think so. I don't know what they're talking about in season 4, because again, they don't even talk about season 4 and refer in reference to Hopper, so I'm not sure what possibly could have been a fake-out death in season 4. And then in season 5, which is where we are now, would be what exactly? So there's the children. He ends up going with by himself to the Upside Down. That's the part of Season 5, because they're doing the crawl hunt. But I'm trying to remember, is there a fake-out death scene with him? No. He like attacks the military. He gets out with L's help in the lab, so that doesn't count, I don't think. Again, they don't even allude to any of these, so I'm not sure, so fuck off, I guess. More EFAP laziness, not so surprisingly. So now I have to like think about like, okay, what in Season 5 would count. Again, I'm not sure. So in totality, he had one as close as a fake out death as you can presumably get in Season 2, but he gets helped out in the end of Season 2, so that would disqualify that one because he gets saved. In Season 3, in good faith, he jumps, so that disqualifies that one. So how many fake out deaths does he have? 0. Like, what the fuck? Again, if there's something in Season 4 I'm not aware of or misremembering, I don't know. Yeah, I'm falling short on Season 4 and 5, quite frankly. So, you know, it'd be nice to get some clarification what they mean by fake-out death. So, yeah. This does apply to Papa. I'll give them that. That one's clear. Like, the Demogorgon clearly knocks him to the ground and would have presumably killed him. So I'll give them that. They actually spell that one out. Fair enough. That's a fair critique. But for Hopper, I'm not sure what they mean when they mean fake out death on his part. That one's a bit harder to gauge because, again, they don't do what I just did. They just say fake out death, fake out death, fake out death. And I'm like, oh, hold on. Let's actually specify what we mean, because he gets saved in Season 2, so again, I'm disqualifying that. And then in Season 3, presumably he jumps, so we can disqualify that. So what's left, is what I'm asking. In terms of quote-unquote Hopper fake-out deaths, please elaborate further. I would love to hear it. At any rate, so yes. Fair critique on Papa, vague, poor critique on Hopper. Not so surprising. Anyway. So, I guess they count Max's death as a fake-out death. So I guess I have to explain this in good faith for the show. So yes, Max does technically die in Season 4. That's what makes the gate open. EFAP clearly leaves this out. They forgot. They misremembered. Elle is still there from her POV. She sees that that's happening. She says no, and then she proceeds to presumably resurrect her at that moment. That's what that scene is alluding to. You know, a little bit of foreseeing, but hey, at least I can critique it properly in saying that's what that, you know, it's a little bit cheap, sure, but at least I can say they resurrected her and that she just, yeah, magically is back. No, that was Elle. They don't say that. Of course they don't, because they're fucking lazy. It's not so surprisingly on EFAP's behalf yet again. Of course, leaving out other details as per usual. Anyway, back to Season 5. Excuse me for the detour. Apologies, but I did remember that whole Hopper thing, so that threw me for a weird loop in trying to remember each one. So, yes, we are following Holly, primarily. She gets captured eventually, so now they have to find her. You know, and through this attack, they find one of the Demogorgons, one of the remaining ones, and they want to proceed to track it further for the next of the among the kids that are among the targets. And they're using Will's guidance of him having the visions, which of course they mock because homophobia. They keep saying gaydar or whatever. They, I'm paraphrasing. They like attach it to the power set and just say they add gay in front of it to like mock it, mocking that he's gay. Because a character can't just have powers separate from their sexuality, I guess. I guess it has to be attached, even though I would see those two things as separate things, because of course I would, because I'm actually a logical human being that can process different things being different things. Now, to clarify, what I think they're trying to do here, in good faith, is say that when they say his power is attached to his sexuality, what they mean is that because he had this growing fear of coming out, because Vecna apparently, during one of his points in capturing Will, showed him, just like how we actually see through Nancy. We see Nancy's visions, I'm not sure, and proper criticism, we don't see Will's. That's something EFAP doesn't even fucking bring up. Fucking me again. 200 subscribers, me doing a better job of critiquing Season 5 than these chuckle fucks who just say bad. It's just bad. And even I can critique Season 5 fucking better than they ever could dream to do. Because they fucking fucked up again. So shockingly so. So there's me doing it again at a measly 200 subscribers. So yes, we don't see it, but apparently we're just told it. That would be my criticism, is that we don't see it. We don't see the visions that Will is shown of within him coming out would be, the death of him in the 1980s. As he puts it in his very monologue that they just criticize and just say cringe, and I'm paraphrasing a bit because he kind of goes on a little bit of a spiel here, and because it's a monologue, that he feels that they would feel drawn away, they would feel too concerned, and then, he would feel like he has to push himself away, and then that by proxy that they would very much do the same, and that this drawing apart would very much be in akin to a proclivity to be isolated, and from isolation drawing from that sadness and depression to commit suicide or something along those lines. So that is his fear, in full recognition, to clarify. But again, I can properly critique the show in saying we should have seen the visions that Will was seeing, what that would have looked like. We should have seen extra scenes of, like, whatever effect we see to clearly show it's a vision, to make sure we know. And then, Will presumably would have already come out, presumably here, and then we see the characters interacting in him in a way that would conform to Vecna's trick. That's the part that needs to actually be critiqued, not the monologue. The monologue is fine the way it is. The part that needs to be criticized is what comes before. But of course, again, I can do my job better than like everyone who has critiqued the scene and just say, oh, it's cringe, and then just make a meme about it. And it's like, fuck off. Like, do better. Please. These fucks get paid to do this dog shit of a complaint, and a 200 subscriber channel who does not get paid currently. I do this, knowing that one day I will probably be homeless, as of right now. And I do a better jobless, than these chuckle fucks did in Season 5 and critiquing Season 5 of Stranger Things. Like, what the fuck? It's just madness to me that this is as pathetic as it is that I can still do a better job of critiquing Season 5 that they could ever dream to do, because they just want to jump on the bandwagon and just say, cringe, it's just cringe, and that's their entire criticism of that scene. And they join the bandwagon of, oh, but everyone's there, even though, to clarify, again, now that that's all been established, that was Will's choice to have it that way. Fuck off. Oh my god. It's really simple. Please listen to the dialogue that Will says before the monologue. And don't just say cringe. That's not a good critique. That's just saying nothing. That's saying nothing to me. Please back up your fucking claims and stop doing this dog shit. Be good critics. Do your fucking jobs. It's fucking pathetic. My god. Anyway, so yes, Holly is grabbed. They're trying to save, as they refer to as dipshit Derek, and then slightly later, delightful Derek. So they're trying to save him through their, their typical, as in tradition of this sense, doing the setup household of the traps like Home Alone style, to set up when the Demogorgon is going to attack him, because he's the next target, because Will saw the visions when he was near delightful Derek, or dipshit Derek, or just Derek. Anyway, so they move him, and then, eventually he removes the blindfolds, which allows the Demogorgon to get there to the spot to try to get him. And I think EFAP critiques this scene, or the scene with the mother in the glass. It's like she with a wine bottle hits one of the Demogorgons, the ones attacking her. Like, she hits it, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times with the bottle, I think, before getting her body slashed and gashed in the neck too. They say, like, oh, why is that so effective? Whatever, fine. And I don't remember if they critiqued the Will one or not. I think they skip over this. I don't remember. In good faith, I'll say I don't remember. I don't remember if they talk about this or not, but I will, because of course I will. At least for this one, there's a bit more of an explanation here. So I'll give EFAP that first one, fine. But this one's slightly different. This one, the second Demogorgon, the one going after Derek, it gets to the den where they're hiding, and it's presumably getting ready to attack, obviously. But Will's there, and he sees it coming. He's seeing through it, and he's seeing Joyce through the Demogorgon. So it's presumably in good faith of the show that he's the one that's getting the Demogorgon to back off when she's swinging, because he explains he's terrified, meaning the Demogorgon through him, and vice versa, because he's connected to the hive mind in that sense. So yeah, he was semi-controlling this one in a sense, is what I'm trying to say. Not so much what he does later, clearly, but this is set up to that payoff, is this. But I guess, we could just skip over it if EFAP did, or if they didn't, then I would just critique EFAP on fucking skipping another scene as per usual, but, I don't remember what was the outcome of that, if they addressed it or not. But I will. So there's that. So it backs off, obviously, and then they give chase. Steve and Robin and Nancy and Jonathan, I think it's all 4 of them. They go with, they chase in the vehicle to the Upside Down as they put the tracker on. And of course, Nancy takes the shot because she's the gunner. She is. She was established that since season 1, and set up and payoff, she's the one who gets the tracker on. Of course she is. But hey, if you set that up, you just pay it off. Basic stuff. But, you know, they hate Nancy, so they just say whatever. But yeah, they get the tracker on, they move the Demogorgon, it moves to the Upside Down, so now they're chasing it through it. And then that's when they finally discover that wall. That team does. Elle and Hopper had already previously discovered it, but they move out in preparation to find Holly. So yes. So now that's what Elle and Hopper are doing. The other group has now moved into the Upside Down. So, you know, we have those two converging plots both within the Upside Down, just in two different sections of it. And thus, now that we understand that there is a wall, and then Dustin reveals later on it's a circle, and so on and so forth, and then they do that whole bit of like, oh, it's the other planet, and the whole convergence thing, you know, they set up that plan, or they exposit that information, in terms of revealing what the Upside Down really is. There's exposition in every season. It's usually as pertains to explain, like, every detail within the Upside Down, and it's usually the kids to the adults, because they use the D&D terms, and so on and so forth. Or in this case, some scientific terms, to help them elaborate on the analysis of, like, okay, what are we dealing with here? Because we are dealing with quite a lot, so I think this exposition is fair. Like, we are dealing with a lot of information that needs to kind of, like, come out. So, you know, I think it's fair to, like, have it via exposition through a plan. I think that's fair. EFAP, I think they say it's dumb or whatever, fuck off. You know, exposition, as per writing rules, it's a neutral thing. It's not bad or good. It is just a method of revealing information. That's all exposition is. You can do that really good, or you can do that really bad. EFAP has a tendency to just say most forms of exposition are bad, I guess. They say, like, saying exposition over the news is good and bad. They flip on that one, flip-flop on that one, so I don't know. They're inconsistent at best on that one. They say news station exposition, as I said, they seem to flip-flop, I think, on that one, as I mentioned just now, and I'm repeating it because I'm trying to think of other forms of exposition. This is a plan exposition. So this is characters, Dustin, who figures this out, expositing this discovery of what the Upside Down is to the rest of the group. And he gets a little assistance from the science teacher and the Lucas's sister, I believe. She also is, like, backing him up in these terminologies that so yeah, this has been a consistent form of their exposition throughout. Is usually through their planning phases, is typically when exposition is thoroughly described. This has been consistent throughout season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So to say that this one is poor is to say that every other version must either be poor or good, and then you have to, like, actually, you know, do a better job at saying why this form of exposition is bad in comparison to each other planning exposition that is consistently throughout Stranger Things. Unless EFAP wants to make the claim that all of them are bad, which I don't know why they would do that, but again, it seems like they seem to also flip-flop on this as well, as the planning exposition also seems to be very flip-floppy. Not so surprisingly that they have no consistent standard of their own for how exposition should be, well, exposited. My stance is, you know, I think a very loose guideline, not necessarily a rule, but if you're encroaching upon M. Night Shyamalan territory of exposition via Avatar: The Last Airbender, that is the line way too far of exposition, okay? That is like an egregious form of exposition, that entire movie. That's like the go-to example of, like, that is just not how you do it. Like, exposition everything. That is just that movie. Like, I don't know what else to say about that movie that has not been treaded and drenched into the ground as it deserves to be. At any rate, so that's, you know, a clear form of, like, that's bad exposition. So how do you get it to be good? The other form of bad exposition, which I would agree with, is the character saying, as you know, to a character then would seemingly know, then why would you tell that character? That's a form of bad exposition. The as you know exposition is typically poor, but has been used consistently very poorly among writers that should have better ways of communicating that form of exposition, I would argue. But at least I have examples. I don't know what EFAP standards are, so because they just seem to say just news exposition, flip-flop, just plan exposition, flip-flop. So I don't know. I think I have a better standard of what I would say my two forms of exposition that are clearly bad. I'm generally fine with news exposition. I think that's fine. Like a fine example of writing it and expositing it in terms of information. I think this planning version of exposition is fine. In terms of relaying to not only just the people in the room of what the fuck is going on, but to the audience of what the fuck is going on, because we would have way less of an idea of, you know, what is going on, unless you're like one of those top tier theory people who cracked this or whatever. But that's like a, you know, far removed thing from this. But anyway, point being is that I don't know what EFAP standards are on exposition. That's as far as I'll go on that. At any rate, back to that. So they make their plans and they, you know, they clarify. And this is a criticism. I don't think EFAP made this criticism, but I heard they don't have enough time. EFAP, you know, Will in the group, the entire group, they don't have enough time. They just needed to go or whatever. I think EFAP takes it from he should have just come out. Like, I don't know. Again, their critique is just, it's cringe. I don't know what the fuck to take from that. I don't, like, what the fuck do you mean? Explain yourselves. They don't. Of course they don't, because fuck off, again. But I've heard other people critique this scene by saying there's not enough time. And I have debunked that claim in my first video about just explaining Stranger Things in the events. So to clarify, they make it explicitly clear in the writing that they have until tonight of that night to get ready. In the scene that they are in, when Will confesses, it is morning. He had time. So that's off the board. So now all we have to do is go over whether it was vaguely cringe or not, and I don't even know how to even attempt to come close to even coming to that conclusion, but whatever. So anyways, so, you know, they're prepping up. Will has, you know, before, so now we're just getting to it, finally, properly. So Will has had these visions, which we don't see, which is the proper criticism I think that is fair to make. We don't see what the visions are. So now, he makes the choice of his own volition. From his perspective, he says, and I quote, I want everyone to hear this, or I might be paraphrasing that, but he says something along the lines of, I want everyone to hear this, when Will walks Mike walks back in. That was his choice to make before the monologue even begins. And I heard people say, why is everybody... It was his choice! Like, debunked. That was his choice, to get everyone in the room. Debunked. That. Of everyone... Why is everyone in... It's like, pay the fuck attention to the basic fucking writing, please. So we can't use that anymore, so now there's the vague cringe. Again, I don't know what to point to, because that means nothing. That's a nothing critique, because it's not backed by anything. That's the only thing that these fuckers have left, and it's nothing. It means nothing, because they don't have anything. So now, Will, making it his choice to come out, gets everyone in the room, proceeds to have, everyone sits down, and then he kind of goes on. And he's, he's struggling to get through it. He's like, oh, I want to be like everyone else. I like all of these things. And now I'm paraphrasing, because it is a bit of a speech. It's a bit of a monologue. I will give it that. It's a bit of, it's a lengthy thing. But, he's scared. Like, I can justify why he would ramble on this way. Like, yeah, that makes sense. Will has always kind of been this, a little bit of in the way he talks is a little bit different in his proclivities. And this has been consistent throughout everything that I've seen of Will. Even when he's not talking, when he's just making an expression, like when they're in the truck or van traveling, and he's like crying because like his feelings for Mike are starting to, as early as that, that is when that is sort of like really coming into crushing realization that is what is happening to him in that moment. But no dialogue is needed. We know what that means. So again, show don't tell, that's when we actually get the showing part. So they do know how to do it. The show don't tell. That's an example of that, but we don't get that for Will's actual vision. And my only guess as to why they didn't show it is they wanted the come-out scene to be isolated from anything other than all the other setups to lead us to this conclusion. They just wanted a clean coming out story, as it were, without this visual aid of what he saw, I guess, because it would have given away the coming out part before, the coming out part actually happens. I think that's what they were alluding to, even though the hints were super obvious ever since, season at best faith season 2, if you even want to track back even in season 1 when he's the one missing, due to what Joyce says about Will. So we can estimate even as early as then that there's something different about Will, that being his sexuality even way back then, to now, all the way in season 5, because he has not come out yet. But now he is coming out officially. And, it's the vision we don't see, which is the thing I am criticizing, and it's the only thing I think is worthy of criticism, because I think the rest of the monologue is fine. It's solid. It's, him being still scared, but pushing through that fear in a time when coming out in any form or fashion could be a death sentence. As he saw it, and in many people in real life would have seen it. Because, coming out could have gotten you killed back then, just saying, again, to reinforce that. So yeah, pretty terrifying. So he's doing his best to, not say the 2 words explicitly, even though, everyone's saying, why don't you just say, I'm gay? And just and have that be the scene. No, that's not how he would have come out. that's just not, that doesn't seem to fit his character at all, first of all. And second of all, just coming out that simply is terrifying. So he's trying to, like, work his way around it in a sort of more roundabout way. And eventually he does sort of say the part that everyone seems to meme, which when he says, "I don't like girls," and then he notices, like, oh, wait. And then he says, I like girls, but not in that way as, like, everyone else. Like, that's his best way of saying those two words without saying those two words. He's a bit of a wordy person in that way. That's his way of expression, and that has been consistent. So and that would also conform just to the times came around. So the strength of the writing here fits his character, and it fits the date and time frame that this is taking place in. So just to clarify, I'm going to argue this is one of the best coming out scenes ever. Dare I suggest that? Yes, absolutely. Like, it's just excellent writing. I'm going to make the opposite argument. I don't see any pushback conceivably possible from that. Because I've debunked everything else. So I'll wait. Like, good luck. Good luck saying that that's bad writing, that it fits the character. That has been consistent with Will, that he kind of roundabouts his way of saying a lot of different things pretty consistently. And especially for a coming out scene, that would be the time to be the most roundabout for Will. Based on, everything that was set up for this payoff. And, just to, people, there were people who were like, oh, but what about him actually getting together with Mike officially? It's like, right. So I don't think those people, to be fair, were paying that much attention to the show at all. I don't think that was ever going to happen. Like, why would you come to that conclusion? That makes no sense. Now, their argument is going to be queer baiting. Like, okay, sure. Like, technically it is that. Though, that, again, to clarify, to specify more importantly, that would not make sense for Mike's perspective. Mike is straight. Just gonna say it. Mike's straight. Like, what else am I supposed to say? He's bi? No, what? That's not even fucking even alluded to. I mean, he already liked 11 since season fucking 1. Season 1, that was like, when he first saw her, that was like, he even says that later on. Mike does. So, like, this idea that he could potentially be bi, it's like, no, I'm sorry, but, So I think that asking for those two to hook up is like a complete misreading. And I get it being queer baited again is very frustrating in general, like when you think of other shows, because getting a coming out story alone is nice, but actually getting a gay couple together and hooking up is a completely different story that even in my Stranger Videos thing said it'd be nice to have a different story. And I said this to myself, I am someone who's writing a story in very much that vein. I want to have an animated show, but I have no proclivity for animation, so I'm gonna fucking not ever be able to ever actually do it. But I have this written animation in mind, writing, of, a coming out story. I'll just say it again. I said it in the previous Stranger Things video, so I'll say it again. But the coming out part would not be the end. That would be somewhere in the middle of the story, because obviously you would have to work up to that section of a relationship in the first place. So, you know, setup and payoff. I want to be a good writer. I just don't want to jump to these random bits just to try to achieve some lackluster, you know, diverse, you know, representation and just have it be shit writing. No, I want to do it justice. So I want to have a coming out story, but it having the coming out part be the middle, and then having the relationship established be, you know, slightly after that, but not have that be the end. Them hooking up and being happily together would be the end. Because, as I alluded to in my video, Stranger Things, I can think of 0 examples of that in any media at all, of a happy gay couple that are main characters. That is what I am aiming to do. I have seen it 0 times. There is 0 representation for that in media. But, you know, we have a bunch of other people just saying it's gay, it's cringe, it's woke. And it's the gay agenda. I've heard that one in another video. And I said it in the previous Stranger Things video that the entire gay agenda, I can sum it up for you. I'll give you their secrets as someone who's bi. Their agenda, I'll give you the secret. It's 2 words. Actually, it's 1. The entire agenda is 1 word. And a pause for effect. It's acceptance. That's the secret. That's it. Ta-da! Wow. 1 word. I was able to do that in 1 word. Acceptance. Crazy concept that we have somehow not reached in 2026 in media. Because there are still people crying and bitching and moaning like EFAP does about a coming out scene and just saying it's cringe, and many other people just saying it's cringe and going beyond that and saying they don't want to see any gay media, period, which is an even worse claim to make, I think. But hey, I am one for acceptance. I like acceptance. I think acceptance is a good thing to strive for in this day and age, when we still have people in 2026 crying and bitching and moaning that gay people shouldn't be in anything and have any representation. No thank you. I would very much like to see a happy ending, so that's what I'll strive for, and probably die never being able to achieve, to be honest, because I don't have the money to hire an animator, so I'll probably die dissatisfied and, you know, homeless, who knows, but at least, you know, I'm staking my claim in this, in saying that I want to take the next step in that, in this gay agenda of acceptance. So that's what I'm going to be working on my end, in case you needed that. But hey, back to EFAP and back to Season 5 of Stranger Things. So yes. So Will's coming out scene is fine. It's, again, for what it is, a coming out scene, I think it's one of the better ones I've ever seen in media. In terms of, again, the other side of that, him hooking up with Mike makes no logical sense, from Mike's perspective, anyway. So that's my 2 cents on that. So yes. His story, in terms of that, ends. So, that fear that he feared that Vecna would prey upon is gone. So now he is free to use his power without restraint, without Vecna pushing back against Will, because, you know, that would be Will's weakness, that very vision re-haunting him. But now he's free. So it's not like he gained more power, as EFAP seems to suggest. No. It's just that he has the same power he just already had access to, but without the restraint of Vecna fighting That's the actual thing that is happening. That he gained more power. That is not true. That is false. That is a lie, or that is a misconception of what is happening here, of him coming out. That is what he believes he is doing. He's freeing himself of the shackles of Vecna attacking him, not him getting more power, which is a misinterpretation of the scene, which I think that's the conclusion they reach for some fucking bizarre reason. At any rate, so now that he's free from the shackles of his fear, he can freely attack Vecna without the fear of being attacked back from the distance that he gets to. At any rate, we'll get to that later. The actual fight. Eventually, they kind of skimp over all this, the whole kid bit. Vecna, of course, gets all the remaining kids, as I already mentioned in my review. He gets all 12. He gets the Demogorgons to capture them first, get out, but then he's like, you know what, Will? That wasn't satisfying enough. Getting all 12 kids wasn't satisfying enough, so I'm gonna make sure to kill your friends, and I'm gonna make sure you know. So, again, this is Will at that time, before the coming out scene. This is before, unleashing that power, as it were. That very power that he had gained from Vecna. So he's able to stop the 3 Demogorgons and kill all 3 of them in the same vein that Vecna had done to his Vecna. A bit of a revengeance in the same way, as it were, in terms of methodology. So, those were the 3 Demogorgons left, presumably. Like, that was left of what his army had to offer, I think. Because I think the other ones that attack, I think they are all killed by military. So all of his attack methods, because he keeps it, again, Vecna keeps attacking in that way instead of defending himself, is breaking bit by bit by bit. And now he has nothing left except himself and the Mind Flayer itself. That's why they are the only 2 entities when they reach planet Abyss, as they refer to it in the show, the Abyss planet. So, now that that's established, and now that, they get all the kids are they're hooked up into the Mind Flayer, and when they're in the Mind Flayer, they have the tentacle things in them, they get into the hallucination of where Holly has been for a good chunk of this season, where Max has been previously, the running up that hill. So we're going to call back to that because, of course, these two, the EFAP is going to say, oh, they're going to make the same criticism everyone else makes. Oh, they stopped. Oh, they talk. Oh, they take their time. We'll get to that, because I think that scene is fan-fucking-tastic. It's so good. It's the best. It's, like, good writing. Who knew that I'm going to say the exact opposite thing that EFAP says? Who could have seen that coming? Shocker. But no, they're completely wrong, as per usual. Because they just want to hate Season 5, because they want to say, they want to jump on a bandwagon, and, they want to reattach it to previous seasons. I think that was their modus operandi for the way they went about the SLOP that they created for themselves. And I am here to dismantle each and every fucking one of them, as I have been doing for 2 hours and encroaching upon 3. So now we are here. So, let's get going. So, the kids are in the memory, and, the rest of them, with the exceptions of Holly and Derek, they are the only 2 that seem to have any semblance of, like, knowing what's going on, like, of knowing the truth about what Vecna is, more so than Derek at a certain point, and then Derek later so, but, he gets the visions, and he gets spooked into conformity, and she tries to fight back. She's like, because they're like trying to like, all the kids are trying to get, you know, Vecna has gaslit all the rest of the kids into complete conformity, so they're going into this like ritualistic chanting type methodology of like just saying like, yeah, and it's a little creepy. But you know, EFAP, of course, they don't even want to encroach upon talking about this. That's fucking creepy as fuck. I'll say it. You know, not everything has to be a monster to be creepy or scary or horrifying. This is like, oh, that's actually genuinely creepy when you think about it. The implications of that these kids are just like, it looks like they're in a cult or something, right? So yeah, it's a pretty good scene right there, I would argue, and it matches a pretty horrific outcome. And Holly sees this, so she feels like she has to fight her way out of this. She gets taken down. So she's like, she even gets blooded up a little bit up here. So now they have all the 12 kids in the table and Vecna. So he has them all trance up. This is what allows, now that all 12, you know, vessels are there, he's able to have enough power, as I mentioned earlier, all the way at the beginning of season 5, explaining that, he has enough power to draw the two planets together. But something eventually disrupts that. And yes. So eventually, L and 8 returns. And of course, they jump over this scene completely, not so surprisingly. So L's on one side, as I explained in my video. They jump over this. I'm pretty confident that they do. And they have 8, who has this different subset of powers, which we've seen established in her introduction in Season 2, that being the power to create illusions. So she has a distinct power from everyone else in the power set group. You know, and I don't know why people hate that episode of Season 2. I don't get it. Like I said, I would argue, like, the best criticism that I could come with is, like, there should have and could have been more with her. That's about the best I can say. In terms of it just being bad, though, I don't necessarily would have jumped to that conclusion. Like I said in my review, like, she's meant to be a character to present a different perspective from Hopper to L. That's her role in that moment. And her role here is to create and use her very same power set, but she has come to the conclusion that they need to stay behind. That's her conclusion. That this will never end unless those two, in a moment of, you know, ending this, they end themselves in this process so that they can stop being hunted truly forever. And then we get our two endings, quote unquote. So yes. So again, L is on one side and Vecna is on the same side with her. She has created this illusionary wall from one room to the other room. So in the other room where the illusion is happening, all the kids are there. They're still in the house. So they can see Vecna. He's like in the room across, and the rooms are connected, and the hallway room has like this, it's like an archway doorway that doesn't have a door. So they can clearly visibly see how Vecna is truly operating, because he doesn't see the kids because he's not paying attention. He sees L. He's paying attention to L because of course he would be. That would track with his perspective. He wants L, and he didn't see 8 even pop up because she came as a surprise +1, as it were. At any rate, so she already created the illusion, so the kids are seeing this. They see Vecna take on more of his true form, so now they know, and that breaks them out of that cult, that acceptance, they are broken from the gaslighting. So now they're like, oh fuck, we need to get out of here. So now the kids get to run off. But Vecna eventually picks up on this at some point. I forget what leads to that exactly. I would have to rewatch it, so maybe that's a criticism. I don't know. I don't remember. But something distracts him, like, and he like picks up on it, and then he like discovers that they're like getting ready to fuck off or whatever. And they already have done so. And he's like fighting Elle in this process during all of this. So they have the kids have they have a little bit of a lead toward the cave that is that Vecna fears to encroach upon, because there is a deep dark memory that he does not want to be associating with. We see that happen earlier, but of course EFAP didn't want to bring that up at all, but of course they won't. As predictable as this coverage has been from them, dog shit, pun intended third time, as we encroach on 3 hours, but nonetheless, in saying that now the kids are running away, they're running toward the cave. Holly the heroic, taking on her persona, is guiding them to the cave. And Derek's falling behind. He's a little bit on the hefty side, so he's struggling there. And Holly, bless her little heart, she falls behind to like, hey, come on, boost him up a little bit, give him that confidence to keep on running. So they get to the cave inevitably, and Holly is among the last. She taking on that guidance role that's a part of her arc now, is the last to do anything. She's making sure that the other kids are safe. She's being a hero, or heroine, as it were. And thus, Vecna eventually tossing out, Elle, sees that the kids are gone and they fucked off to the cave, so he's like, oh shit, gotta get them back, because that's what causes the obviously the momentum of the thing to stop, because the power's gone, the vessels are gone, so he's got to get them back on track. So yes, they fuck off, and they're getting ready to go. And so he eventually is trying to catch up. He gets to the preface of the cave, or the entrance to it, stops, obviously, still, but eventually he gets in there. And then, as I said in my review, he sees the whole rock thing in his actions of killing that guy. And eventually is able to overcome this memory that has been haunting him all this time. So on and so forth. So, yeah, she is able to make sure all the kids, try to escape. She leads them outside of the cave to that other part that leads up to that red field zone that leads to, like, the memory place, I guess I would call it. Or the gateway section of it, where that is. Because that's where it was in Season 4. So, continuity. It's in the same place. Shocker. So, yeah. So he eventually, I think he recaptures the kids. I think so, right? Because, like, he, like, gets it to, surface, because the rest of the crew are working their way up that, on the upside down, tower, so that when the merging happens, to get it close enough, as their plan was to have it this way, so that it would be close enough. And this is happening simultaneously, by the way. That stop happens when it's that close. So they're working their way up as that as that has happened, this escape plan is happening. So those two things are happening in a diverging timeline that is happening simultaneously, to clarify. And like the group on that side is pretty big. It's like Jonathan's, it's like all the kids, the 4 main squad of kids, the main squad of teenagers. I think that entire bulk of team is on the tower top. And then it's just L8 and Holly that are on the opposing side in the memory space. So those are our 2 main factions here. And I think the only other person that is separated is Hopper and Joyce and Murray. They are in like the they're setting up the bombs to make sure like this place can fuck off, the upside down part of it. That's their job. So they're finishing up that. So the teen squad / the younger teen squad, they get up into the abyss. The abyss in which there are no other entities other than, as I've already now established due to what happened in season 4, because I paid the fuck attention to season 4 and the remainder of the Demogorgons set in season 5. So again, he sent his last remaining Demogorgons to attack, so there is nothing left to defend him. It's just him and the Mind Flayer itself. So they get to the abyss. The others are already in the abyss and they're trying to escape it. Holly, unfortunately, gets recaptured again, because she's the last one to do so. We see him drag her back. So yeah, it is an unfortunate thing. So he's like rehooking it. This happened before, by the way. So the second time, after that, after the sort of split there, because it's now the only 2 remaining in the space, because the other kids have been dropped into the upside down, because it's that close. They can just drop down into the upside down and have the others make sure that they get out. That's how they're getting out. Holly was the last one in this instance. She's still on the other side of the gate. So she's just there with Max in the first time, because this was criticized, the speech, so I'm going backwards in case this is unclear. This is the first time this is happening, when it's Holly escaping the first time, not the second time, the first time. So the first time, it is her and Max. They got to this spot, where the bridge between the memories are, as it was in season 4, right? They get to around the same position I think Max was in, almost 1-to-1 exactly. So Max proceeds to say, because her gate opens up, and Holly's like, oh, we can go back, and she says, oh, that's for my body, and it's clear that's her body. The implications of having it in any other way are terrifying, of like, so what would have happened if Holly did go through? Would she, like, possess Max? Is that how that would function? Because it would only be her body, right? So now she has to deal with that confrontation. So she has to convince Holly to find her own path home. That's the bit here. So she, and it's a monologue. So she's going about, and Holly has felt demoralized. She goes on about how she failed to protect the mom and herself from the Demogorgon, and then she feels like she failed consistently and just kept running away. Very akin to like an Eddie sort of thing going on there, but even younger still. So she goes on, Max in response, saying how music can draw, as it did in season 4, draw us to the light, as she tells her, but she responds and saying, well, I don't have, like, that type of thing, right? So she, she's making, in the same song as playing Running Up Your Hill, obviously, but I think it's a more, like, instrumental version of it at a certain point, and then it comes back in at a certain juncture. So yeah, they're just, like, reforming, and replaying the hit, but, it matches with Holly, interestingly. I mean, Max and Holly had an interesting interaction before this, but I can't remember their scene before it, unfortunately. I can only say I remember it happening. That's the best I can do, so my bad on that. So they have a interesting connection at the very most, I'll say that much. So it's interesting that it's her and Max here. I'll say that much. I remember that being the case in the first time watching it. At any rate, so, Maxine says, I didn't need Kate Bush, I didn't necessarily need the song, I just needed Lucas. And then Molly responds, well, I don't even have a boyfriend, which is it's a pretty funny response, but it's also like, oh, well, she can't use that either. Okay. So she goes, well, okay, what's that? And she's pointing to the figurine. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but she eventually says, she tells her about Holly the Heroic and how Mike gave her that as earlier in the season in episode 1 or 2, one of the ones, or 3 or whatever, one of the early episodes before she gets captured, obviously. So she has had this throughout her entire journey so far. And she says, this figurine is just that. It's just a toy, as she puts it. That's her view. And Max's response is, well, maybe it does mean more. And I'm paraphrasing, but she kind of goes on and say, well, because she kind of ends, Holly does, in saying that I am not heroic. And then Max responds in saying, it was because of you. You jumped into the danger. You got me out. You did all of that. And then we see her later on guiding the kids, as I mentioned, to escape. So yeah, it is clear that, she has done a lot more than she's giving her credit herself. So she reinforces, you are Holly the Heroic. That has been what you have become. So that figurine does mean a lot more to you than you probably ever realized. So that opens up her gate. Again, this is their first interaction, keep in mind. So Max is the one that gets out and reaches her body. Holly reaches out and gets to her body. Problem is her body's in the abyss, as we already knew that, as I mentioned. So she climbs out, she unhooks from the Matrix, as it were, or that allegory, but she unhooks. So she's just now in the abyss. And then Vecna eventually realizes it. So now she's on her own again, trying to run, and then, you see her fall. She finds one of those holes. She falls, presumably almost to her death. There, Vecna, seeing that one of his chosen initial vessels is about to die, he's like, well, I need her, obviously. She has a lot of that power, probably the most among the 12 of them, based on what he kept saying about her specifically, in good faith. So he definitely needs her more than any of the other 12, but he definitely needs all 12 in totality. That is also clear. Both of those statements are both true. So he stops her from splatting on the ground in the Inside Out. Because, you know. So, and that's what Nancy and Jonathan see. And Dustin, I believe, was there as well. And then she gets scooped up back, as Nancy explains later. So she gets shunted back in, which leads to their second attempt of escape. So, yeah. It does not go well so much the second time. He eventually has, you know, just himself, Vecna, and the Mind Flayer. And all the kids are in the thing, including Holly again, because he's recaptured her. So now, but through that, the rest of the, you know, through that distraction, the other group, the Abyss Walkers, as I'll call them, the Abyss Walker group, has managed to make their way to that empty abyss that everyone has complained about, even though the rest of the Demogorgon army had clearly already been killed. But I guess basic comprehension needs to be explained yet again. So it is, again, just him, Vecna, and the Mind Flayer. That's the only two threats that they have remaining, and quote-unquote campaign over. This is the final boss battle. But those are the only two entities that need to be dealt with. So you have the physical entity in the Mind Flayer, as it becomes, and you have Vecna, who has two forms, his physical form and the mental form, as it were. So, everyone said, oh, they complained that the fighting scene was too short. That's their only complaint about this scene. Everybody who's critiqued it has said this, as far as the critiquers go. Length is an interesting critique, because it's probably one of the harder things to probably sort of gauge, especially in a fighting scene. Fighting scenes might be one of the hardest, like, time ratio things to figure out, especially if you're a story-driven, well, story like Stranger Things is, primarily. So how much credence do you give to an action set piece of this nature? Well, I would say, you know, for the time that they spend on it, I would say it was also fine. So, shocker that I'm going to stay and remain consistent about all of Stranger Things. So I'm going to make the opposing critique. I'm not going to say it was great. That's not my claim. I said fine. Just to clarify. I think that there's just the right amount of time. It's not too long as to be like, ugh, Jesus Christ, this is going on forever. But it's not too short, I would argue also. Like I said, I think everything that needed to happen occurs. Everybody has a moment to shine within the fight scene. As an example, Nancy and her group, the Abyss Walker group, they're the distraction squad, as it were. They're distracting the Mind Flayer and attacking it. And since it and Vecna have a connection, they hurt each other, because those two are the only two things that have that type of connection. Will is free from that part of it, but still has his power. Free from Vecna, and Vecna encroaching upon him after coming out. It's not additional power, it's the power he already possessed. Due to Vecna, ironically enough. But it's not like he's a part of the hive mind in that connected way, as I mentioned in my review, in good faith for the show. So he has the power, but he's not directly linked. That's why Will does not die when the other two die. because he's not connected in that way. He just has, again, the power to push back, but not be as initially hurt. I mean, it happens a little bit, actually, in this scene. So Will, at a point, because he starts to fall behind, you notice, and then he stops at a point. So he's the furthest behind as the others distract. Him and Joyce stay behind further, because he gets, like, pushed. He's hitting a wall, almost, of where, like, if he steps any further, he's gonna get rehooked into the hive mind. It seems to be a proximity thing at this point. That seems to be the justification within good faith and within the context of what's happening here. So there seems to be a literal, like, distance thing happening, which, you know, if you take it within the context of D&D, makes perfect sense, by the way. Spells, for those unfamiliar, have a range, and if you're outside that range, well, can't do nothing. That's how that basically works. So, you know, they're even following Dungeons & Dragons rules without it having to be Dungeons & Dragons. How about that? You know, fun little bit extra of writing, toppling on topping it. And I'm pretty sure that might have even been unintended, but that's how I take it. Separate of what the writers might have said about having a lack of understanding of Dungeons & Dragons. I don't care what they said. I care what is shown. I care what is written. And what is written, as I said in my review, is a love letter to Dungeons & Dragons at the end after the fight sequence. That shit was a love letter to Dungeons & Dragons, despite whatever the fuck they said. I don't give a fuck what they said, the writers, at that point. Death of the author. Simple as that, right? Anyway, so you have Will at a distance. He's, you know, out of range of being affected by the hive mind. So he's waiting in the wings right now. The Abyss Walkers, which is Nancy, who primarily says, I'll be the distraction. She comes in with the flamethrower no, she has the machine gun. Of course, she has a gun. As set up in payoff, as tradition, as it were. She looks like the Rambo that everyone mocks, but I think she looks fine. She's already taken on this look before, and I had no issue with it previously, nor do I have an issue with it here. Anyway. So, she says, I'm gonna be the distraction. So she's willing to risk her life in this moment. But hey, everyone says, but nobody died. Well, 8 dies, spoiler alert. But, does she? That's the question. Because of the ending of what that implies, but we'll get there. But for all intents and purposes, what we as the audience see is 8 die. So we'll say that for now. And then 11 also dies, quote unquote. But who knows, right? Based on the explanation we get after, we get a whole new weird thing going on, but we'll get there. Point being is that the Abyss Walkers, led by Nancy being the distraction, she encroaches upon this cavern wall, and then there's like this entrenched path that she runs towards. The only criticism that I heard is, I guess, semi-fair, is like they managed to get up there pretty fast. Fine, whatever. It's like, whatever. It's like, they're doing very little, at bare minimum. The other two, Dustin and Steve, are the ones that are attacking at close range beneath. These egg sac-looking things underneath the Mind Flayer. And with each hit, and each flamethrower, and each attack is, throwing off Vecna in the creature itself, because it's still a physical entity. It has very clear weaknesses, as of any, as you would hope any given boss would have in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, because you don't want to make, you don't want to have something be too unfair. But just because, as I've said this, just because, quote-unquote, nobody died, does that mean it's bad? No! I'm tired of this, like, people saying somebody needed to die. I alluded to in my initial review, mentioned the Negan effect, the coined term that I used in that review. And I still believe this. If they did that, if they did kill somebody, you would have the same exact people arguing, like, why did they kill that character? I love that character. Oh, I hate this show. Fuck off, show. Why'd you do them dirty? No matter what they did, no matter how they killed any given character, even if it was self-sacrifice, I guaranteed you it would have had the Negan effect. Guaranteed. Every one of those critics would have said the exact same thing. So you can't please these people either way, to clarify what I think my position is on them. These critiquers that say that they needed a death. I don't think they believe them. I don't think they believe that at all. And again, I point back to the Negan effect to support my claim. In that, when that happened in that show, a lot of people fucked off and left, if you remember that scene being one of the best horror death scenes in horror history. Despite that, people still fucked off and left, because a beloved character did die, in fact. So, you damned if you do, you damned if you don't. That is the scenario that we have now created in this world of who do you kill off and who you do not kill off. So I take it, you know, you gotta go with the writing. If a character dies, they die. And if they don't die, they don't die. It's as simple as that, really. But, you know, the only other thing I can allude to is the quote-unquote plot armor. So now they have to throw in the added critique of plot armor, because that's the only thing that they can jump to, the people critiquing this moment, including EFAP. I don't remember if... I actually don't remember if EFAP said that any of the group have plot armor, but just allude to the disappointment that nobody dies, and say that the Duffer Brothers are then, by extension, cowards and bad writers by not having a death scene, which I think is a ludicrous statement to make. Because of course I do, because I actually have standards that are higher than that. You know, as I said, I think Glenn's death is one of the best scenes in horror history. That's one of the reasons I kept on watching The Walking Dead past that moment instead of abandoning the show. I got to the end of The Walking Dead, and I even started watching Fear the Walking Dead, and then there was one other show, one other spinoff, I don't remember its title. It's the one with Negan and I'm trying to remember her name. Glenn's girlfriend. Oh, my name. I'm blanking on her name right now. Maggie, was it? I think it's that. At any rate, it's following those two as they head in New York, I think is the place they end up being in that. And then the stuff that ensues there. Anyway, so I continued to watch The Walking Dead past that point, and even some of the spin-off content, just to see what that was all about. I digress in saying that, my standards don't stop if character I like dies. I liked Glenn. I loved Glenn. Glenn was one of my favorite characters, and, you know, they followed the comic, and I thought it was one of the best horror scenes in horror death scene history. It's probably, as I stated, it's among my top 3. If I had to pick a top 3, I don't know what my other 2 would be off the top of my head, but that's definitely one of them, definitively, without question. Anyway, back to Stranger Things and dunking on EFAP, because they did a dog shit job at reviewing this content, and their stuff was slop in comparison. I would say that their analysis was pussy and cowardly. And I have actually backed up my claims, I would argue, very substantially, versus just saying, oh, they didn't kill anyone, bad writing, pussy. But it's like, what is this? It's like, what do you mean that that's what you get out of just that? So I don't know. I would like to think that now I officially have higher standards than EFAP in this regard. So there you go for there you go, another one. So yes, we then have Elle, who gets there. She jumps into the mind flare where the real Vecna is hiding in, where the children are. So she gets inside to fight the real Vecna. So the mind Vecna is probably not going to have a good time, so he's going to have to focus on her. So he pulls out of that nonsense. But the kids are still in the thing. So they are on the outside, the Abyss Walkers. They're doing their distraction. Elle's in the inside fighting real Vecna at this point. Elle and him have a back and forth, tit for tat of like push pull, you know, pretty much all of that. And in the in this battlefield that is within it, there is one of the many jack spikes that are like essentially like sticking out. This is what eventually Elle starts pushing him towards when she starts to gain the upper hand due to the distraction. And she eventually gets him like right on the edge of it. This allows Will, now that he has an opportunity to do so from his side, to give Elle a little bit of extra oomph power, so now they're combining despite the distance. So everybody is contributing to the fight in their own unique way, as per usual. Actually, I would say it's among the best of them, because everybody is doing their part in different ways, and it's substantially fulfilling. Like, everyone has a moment. There are close calls, which I guess everyone's gonna blow past, but because they just want to jump to nobody died, even though they would bitch and complain and cry that somebody died. So I don't know what else to say other than it's a lose-lose in terms of critique, because you're gonna kill somebody's favorite character in this, if you're going to, you know. That's all I can say on that. Like, it's a lose-lose. You either, you know, have tough and tried moments where you have close calls and nobody dies, and you have people critiquing and saying plot armor, or you kill somebody within that and you go, oh, why'd you kill that character? No, not that character, I love that character. Bad show. See, like, how do you get past that? Like, at least I'm willing to engage on the other side. I haven't heard jack shit about any of these critiquers doing what I just did, but hey, I again, more work, but no biggie on my end. 200 subscribers not paid, by the way. Just want to re-emphasize that yet one more time. So we have them both pushing together, distraction happening. This allows both of them to have enough power to push Vecna the rest of the way into this jack. So he's stuck there, and he gets, you know, jabbed through fully. So now this causes the creature to fall. The Abyss, the Mind Flayer. But we see that Vecna is clearly just breathing very, like, and now that, you know, because Vecna has nothing, essentially, except this, he's essentially just almost virtually done. So now Will and Joyce can rejoin the group, so they do so. We see them walk in. So now, and they unleash the kids, because they have the capacity and free time to do so, because there is no longer a threat, and because Vecna's virtually done here. So now everybody's free, and that's the end of the fight, technically speaking. But the last bit is to remain is who's going to kill Vecna, and I would argue that Joyce being the one is probably the most optimal choice. I would argue that that's the case. To make it come full circle, you know, it was her son in season 1. She was the first target affected, and afflicted the most in season 1 out of everyone first. And she already had her weapon and she came forward. And, you know, it does the scene of having everyone else's moments of Vecna. How, you know, Vecna had tortured each of them, of our main characters. So it's like a nice visual representation of, like, showing the audience as a nice kind reminder of, like, how he fucked them all over. Show don't tell, but apparently this is also bad, because show don't tell also means to also crap on show, according to EFAP, I guess, because they say this is bad, just because. But hey, I'm gonna argue that it's good, because it's show and not tell. It's a good form of, for the audience, us, the people watching, as a form of, like, relief, of, like, yeah, you did that to them, so fuck you for each, you know, because during each memory, Joyce is taking another swing at the head. So we're getting each character, each moment, and then the last one resides in the final next swing, and then the head comes clean off. And that's the proper end of Vecna. I think that moment is perfect. Or, you know, as good as you can conceivably get. If you're not going to say perfect, I would say that that is a tremendous way to do a scene in that fashion. So the kids are all free. Vecna has been killed once more properly this time, and so did too the Mind Flayer because of the connection. So they're both fucking dead. And so we are able to have our epilogue, and people complain, oh, the epilogue too long. Critique. Which, it's like, okay, so now that critique is back. I don't know if EFAP made this necessarily. And I go back to, as I mentioned in my previous review, when I sort of haphazardly made the bold claim that this was better than Lord of the Rings, because I wanted to make a hot take in that video. But I purposely picked out Lord of the Rings for a very particular purpose, because I knew that this was going to happen. I knew people were going to say that this was too long. I knew that that critique was going to happen outside of EFAP, because I've heard it now at this juncture. Obviously, I don't remember if EFAP makes this claim, so I'm not going to say that they make that claim necessarily. I would have to rewatch that portion of the episode recap if they even talk about it at all, which I don't remember if they do or don't, so I'm not going to tackle EFAP onto this criticism, but I am going to critique other critiquers that have made this criticism. It's like, okay, so, you know, you have Lord of the Rings, who had this ending of, you know, all the characters, and they all have these segments, and they all get their finales, and it's an even, I think, if I remember correctly, of the two of these endings, I think Lord of the Rings might still be the longer of the two of these. This ending is split between 2 to 3 endings, 3 in totality, yes, there are 3 groups. In the finale mode, for technically speaking, but I'll get there. But for the most part, 3. But I'll get there. Anyway, point being is the reason I brought up Lord of the Rings is because I knew that people were going to say it's too long. And sure enough, I've heard that critique, it's too long. It's like, okay, so I guess Lord of the Rings ending is bad again, I guess. I've never understood this criticism, and I continue to will never understand this ending criticism bullshit. This ending is as properly long as I feel it needs to be. Every character gets their conclusion here drawn out, and, you know, where they're going to go next, in terms of being free of the shackles of this nightmare, as it were. And again, it's split between the 3 groups. First group is high school group. The graduation is happening. They're graduating from high school, I believe it is. No, that's the second group, sorry. First group is actually Nancy's group. So it's Nancy, Steve, Jonathan, and Robin. It's those four on the rooftop shooting the shit and saying their goodbyes, and saying that how they'll make a plan to meet once a month, etc., etc. I'm kind of gonna fast-pace this, my explanation of the ending again, since I don't remember what EFAP said, but I've heard, again, other people say it's too long. So yeah. They particularly take a shit on Jonathan because he's anti-capitalist, but whatever. It's like, okay. That's just a character thing that he's going through, I guess. I don't mind. Whatever. At any rate, so the four of them are shooting shit, make their plan, and the group EFAP still hates Nancy for whatever fucking reason, so when she remains independent of both Steve and Jonathan, of course they hate that decision in this conclusion as well. I think it's fine, and fits where Nancy was going anyway. Setup and payoff and all that. Her and, as I mentioned, Jonathan just broke up in that scene, in the melty scene where they're on the desk. The two sort of have a breakup into friend zone scene there. So she's like, yeah, I'm gonna do my own thing, find a new job, so on and so forth. Discovery. Steve has become a coach in his time, so he gets to hang out with the kids, as he said he was good with kids, so he's kind of getting his dream in a different sense, which I think is a nice payoff to his dream. It's like it's a variation without needing to feel like it's fulfilling the perfect idea of what he thinks he thought he needed, instead of giving him a different version of that thing and still saying like, yeah, that's satisfying. So I think his ending is quite conclusive and good. Nancy, as I said, gets a different job, so she's sort of, floating kindly into the night of future employment, but, independently so, and that's fine for her. Again, Jonathan is making an anti-capitalist film, and that we'll see how that, however that's gonna pan out, whatever, but, that he's just talking the intro of it. Robin, I believe her ending was she was going to also, move elsewhere, and then, I forget if he wanted to, if she was mentioning her girlfriend there. I don't remember if she does directly or not, but point being, she's also going to head out job hunting or having different jobs, so on and so forth. So that's that group. We then cut to, I believe it's Hopper and Joyce. These two have their ending where Hopper proposes to Joyce. That's their entire scene. It's nice. And we see 11 having sacrificed herself, right? So now we have our final group, which is the graduation group, the younger teens, the 4 squad. That being Mike, Will, Justin, and Dustin, and the younger siblings, and so on and so forth. So those 4 are graduating high school. Dustin is the one who is the valedictorian, so he's the one giving the speech. So, of course, he has the Hellfire shirt underneath his graduation shirt, and, he makes a point of doing the thing Eddie had planned to do in honoring his memory, and that is revealing said shirt and flipping the bird to the principal to say, fuck off to your bullshit conformity, and good on him for doing it that way. It's a great speech. That also addresses, yeah, we've been through some wild shit, and here in Hawkins, I finally remember the name of the town, Jesus Christ, because I didn't remember in my initial review, but I digress. In saying that, after their graduation, they set off for one last Dungeons & Dragons campaign, and this is truly the final moment. This is the final button. they're in their final battle, and it's sort of recreating the thing that we just saw, but in D&D form. So this is, as I alluded to in my review, I think this was to additionally please the theory fans that were saying, what if it was all just an entire Dungeons and Dragons campaign? And then, you know, I kind of was like, okay, well, I don't know how that conforms to, again, the add-on characters of, like, Max becoming a part of that party, and Holly subsequently also joining that party. I don't know how that would necessarily fit within that theory. I guess those are the necessary holes, because they do eventually join those two parties respectively, or a part of them at the bare minimum. So again, I'm not sure how that pans out necessarily. Maybe that theory might need a slight recrafting, but I think there's a way of making it fit, I guess. Still, point being is, like, they're facing the final battle in the Dungeons and Dragons campaign that they're having. It's like this vampire guy. It's like alluding to more so the you know, Vecna, or like the interpretation of the military lady. And yes, the military has fucked off, as I already mentioned, because of course they would have, because their job of hunting L is mute. They all, as I mentioned in my review, they all saw L stay behind, the military people included. They all saw that. So they're like, oh, well, our job here is done. Fuck off. Yep. No need to stick around here. Our job is clean and gone. That's like my good faith interpretation of, like, what they said and how they decided to leave. But hey, everyone else is going to critique and complain and say, well, why would the military, well, EFAP did. I know that they did. They like, why did the military not stay behind and, you know, whatever. You know, arrest Hopper. I'm fairly certain at some point, maybe I'm misremembering this, or maybe I'm adding on, somebody was offering Hopper a clean slate. Was it that doctor that was saying that to him, I think? I know he gave him the adoption paper, that's for sure, the Jane Hopper thing. I know that's a thing that did happen. I can confirm that. I'm not so sure about if he was gonna swipe Hopper's record clean. I think that was a part of his deal, I think? I don't remember, though, so I can't say for sure. Anyway, point being, they're in the campaign, and they have all rolled, you know, and it's down to the final roll, as per usual, as per this type of thing. And, you know, they have run out of options. All their spells have seemingly they're, you know, alluding to the kryptonite, as they refer to it, that affected L in the form of this campaign. All of their magic has been you know, taken out. So one of them remembers, I think it's Will, he remembers that they can call upon somebody in reference to L, and Mike initially says nothing happens, and then he pauses, and then he says, but wait, and then he says that it works and it kills the boss, the final boss. And, of course, it is Max who complains twice. She initially said something about magic, I think. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what it was she said. But Mike refuted it, and then she's like, oh, this is bullshit or something. And here she says something along the lines of, and again, I'm paraphrasing, of like, don't you think this is a bit tropey of it being the happy-go-lucky ending? And he said, well, it's as happy as it's going to be. And then he reinforces each character, and he goes from left to right, starting from Lucas and Max, who are together, starting from those two, moving on to which it shows what I'm assuming are these flash forwards of what they were going to end up doing. So, you know, Lucas and Max, according to the flash forwards, are dating continuously. Or continue dating. They finally have that date mall that they wanted to have earlier, set up payoff, right? In this flash forward. in accordance to Will's flash forward, he meets some other guy at a bar. And, you know, Mike is explaining this, that he finds his person and is able to be fully accepted as he is. And how Dustin, he's the last remaining one there, is to have some sort of these sort of side adventures in accordance with one other character, and thus, but the mage, as I think it was a mage or a cleric, or I forget what class L was presented in this juncture, but point being is, like, he points to it and says she sacrificed herself, or he starts, and then it begins to show a different interpretation of the ending, where it shows 8 reaching out her power of the illusion, creating an illusion where 11 is her positioning, and having her invisibly run, because we already saw her doing illusionary magic and making the kids seem invisible, so presumably based on this, the true 11, based off of this interpretation of Mike's explanation, is that she cast invisibility on L. L walks out invisibly and goes to a hiding spot and fucks off elsewhere, free from the military shackles, and now they what they saw is the illusion get fucking wrecked, is what he proposes truly happened. This is the secondary ending, the alternate ending, as it were, to Stranger Things. I think this conclusion is an interesting one. It creates an either-or scenario. Either, and I think that's actually, surprise, surprise, good writing, not bad writing. It opens opportunity to make people go, well, it could be this way or that way, or interpreted this way or that way. It expands what people are able to take from Stranger Things as its entirety. Under one hand, either Mike is just hopefully, blissfully trying to create this scenario in his head to give himself some sort of comfort and the rest of his party, as it were. Or he is saying that that is what really happened, and that 11 is good and safe too, and I guess so too is 8 in that scenario. But we will never know their outcomes, according to Mike, at least. Well, the party will not. So that is how the book end his finale. So they grab their character sheets, which are neatly put in these like binders, and each one by one, puts in their binders. And then, to truly cap us off, as Mike is the last one to head upstairs, in his place as he's heading up, Holly is heading down, and her group, including Derek and one of the other friends that was talking to her, and I think there are 2 other people there that join her as she runs the new D&D campaign as the DM of the future. And again, we approach upon the wall, or the door, and then that is where we end Stranger Things, as I had already mentioned. And I think, again, it opens up the conclusions, and again, I think you could still craft around that the entire thing was a Dungeons and Dragons thing all along. Again, I think the theory would need a little bit of retuning, but I think it could fit. Anyway. So yeah, there are definitely a varying number of interpretations of the ending now, which I think is a good thing, not a bad thing. So again, I'm going to argue that Stranger Things is one of the best series of all time. EFAP have fucked up tremendously in bad faith, lying, misinterpreting, leaving out information, and creating a slop of trying to tell off and say that the writers were just pussies. I think that the EFAP crew are a bunch of pussies in my retaliation. That is my retort for this now coming upon 4-hour takedown of EFAP's bullshit slop. You guys are a bunch of pussies. You did not do your due diligence either. You left out a whole bunch of shit in your, your walkthrough of trying to say that Stranger Things was bad. I have debunked each and every one of them to the best of my ability. I even, in my attempt in doing so, gave some charitability within good faith, and still gave them the utter collapse in the end. So I hope you enjoyed this video, because this was completely unscripted, by the way. This was me shooting the shit, but seeing how fundamentally broken this breakdown was, and I felt that somebody needed to fucking step up to this bullshit, because it needs to end. This level of critique needs to stop.
This is a 9-part podcast.
Anyway, that's where I'm gonna end my review and my takedown response of their critique, their quote-unquote critique of all of Stranger Things. If you ended up enjoying this video, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition. My second to head you over to my PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly, and third to my Discord server, where you can join, collab, chill, do all that cool stuff for free. It's free, guys. It's free to do all that cool stuff on my channel. And until next time, everyone, enjoy Stranger Things, and goodbye.